got to tell y'all about this thing called life. You know I got to share it. See, there's this thing called life. I got to tell y'all. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 214 of In a Good Way podcast. Today's special guest is Naniece Gonzalez. Naniece has had these incredible experiences since she was little, right? She's experienced a couple NDEs, lots of out-of-body experiences. So she's been seeing things since she was little. It's an honor to have you here, Naniece. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just like I said in the introduction, with all my guests, I like to start from the beginning, right? And so you have been experiencing things since you were little. So we'll start
Yes.
there if you don't mind. We'll go back to you as a kid. What was some of the first things you remember, like spiritually, right?
So I've experienced things good and bad, but I think that the reason why the spiritual stuff was opened up to me was because of what my dad did. He
Mm,
was um he was into Santeria, and he practiced like witchcraft, and they did
mm,
like sacrifices. And so he would take us like camping to like Julian or to Rosarito. That's where they would do most of their rituals. And
mm,
they had the candles. They would like try to summon demons and stuff like that. But with that came a lot of traumatic events, because my brother and I, he's a year older than me, we were exposed to the stuff. Recently a bunch of Epstein stuff is coming out, and I was like, that's nothing.
mm,
I already lived that, so it doesn't scare me or it doesn't surprise me, because I was a first witness to stuff like that. Um, down in the South, this is stuff that's typical, normal stuff, where they abduct children or even like regular people, whether it's for to harvest their organs to sell them in the black market, but they also sacrificed it for their rituals.
mm.
And these were things that we learned as kids. I was like, this started at the age of 6, and it was horrible. It was like, for me, it was like dark energy. Like, I never liked it. It felt dirty. It felt scary, but we were taught not to feel emotion, not to feel scared. My dad made us do things like, you know, for one, entertaining the kids that were there. And I always thought, am I going to be next? Is my brother going to be next? It was always fearing for our lives, because we saw what they did to the kids.
Mm.
And then we were made to drink their blood. We were made to eat their organs, like whether it was their liver, and that was to make us better, to be spiritually strong, And it's like, we're little kids, we don't know any of this, but they believed in this, right? And as a kid, I never really got into it. Like, I was doing the stuff with them because we were made to do it. But the first experience that I had that was actually good, I think, to me, was being 6 years old and seeing an angel. It was an opening angel. It appeared to me on a day that my brother and I were getting hit by our grandmother, and we were hiding from her. And then I remember there was rain, there was thunder, there was lightning that struck our backyard, and it started a fire. And
Mm.
that's when the angel appeared to me. And it's weird, because now that I'm older and I hear about the Bible and how they describe the angel, how it says, do not fear, or don't run away from me. I never felt scared. To me, like, I was more scared of the dark stuff than the good stuff. Like, I was more attracted to the good stuff. So when I saw the angel, it had a bunch of eyes, it had fire all around it, and it was beautiful, it was a big old beautiful thing. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then I heard a voice telling us to get out. My brother didn't hear it. He had his head covered. And again, I heard the voice again tell us to get out. And so we get out, and we crawl out of the underneath the bed enough for the firefighters to rescue us.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was like the first good experience. But from from age 5 to 9, my dad continued to do these rituals, right? And we continued to see like scary stuff. My dad also had us around like a lot of bad people. Like, he was into trafficking and a bunch of stuff, like, you know We would go to this. A lot of this stuff would happen over there in Rosarito, and they had a family over there that had a house. And there was like this one time that we went over there and we went inside the house, and there was not that many people there, but my dad had my brother and I sit on the kitchen table, and he's talking in the living room with his aunt. And so my brother and I are sitting there, and there's this wall, and there's this puppet hanging from the wall with, like, with strings. And that was when I became scared of clowns. We're just sitting there, and all of a sudden we see the clown move its head, and then it smiled at us. And me and my brother are like, yeah, we're like, what? And so then we like backed up a little bit, and then the puppet starts crawling on the wall. And I was like, oh, so we're like looking all around to see maybe somebody's pulling the strings from the back or something. There was nobody else there. So my brother and I run to my dad, and we tell him what we saw. And the aunt, she looked creepy. She had like the typical gray hair, and she looked like one of those creepy tias. And she was laughing, and she was like, oh, that's just the spirit of da 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 who passed away a couple days ago. And I was like, that's not funny. And I told my dad that I wanted us to leave. And so I've always been able to have the discernment of feeling like good or bad energy. And I started to have visions too. So I have a thing where I don't like making eye contact with people, because when I do that, I don't know if you've ever seen Ghost Rider, the movie.
Yeah.
You know how he looks into their eyes and he sees their soul and he sees what they've done, and then he does what he does to them. I have similar experiences. I'll share down the road how how they came to be true, because I recently had somebody tell me that what I saw was true. So I started having visions, and I would tell my dad, and my dad was like, I think he kind of knew that the stuff that I was being, exposed to had a lot to do with what I'm being, because I was opened up to this kind of stuff, right? So at first he wasn't really like paying much attention to it until this one time that we're going on one of his runs where he's transporting his stuff, and it's like the middle of the night, and I'm like just chilling, and then all of a sudden my body feels anxiety, and then I get the chills, and then it gets suddenly cold, and then I start shaking, and then I hear a voice saying pull over, and I'm like, what? And then I start having the visions where there's a car accident, the tires are screeching, and people are screaming. And so it was like a movie in my head, and it happened so quickly, and I like start screaming at my dad. I was like, you need to pull over, you need to pull over. So he freaks out, he pulls over, and then he comes around, he's like, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? When he started doing that, the cars behind us crashed. And I told him, and I know I'm getting the chills remembering. He was like, I was like, I tried telling you, like, I see these things. But then he started using like my gifts for his own benefit, because he would always like take me with him wherever he would go do his things, and he'd be like, okay, what do you think about that person? What do you think about that person? And I would tell him, like, yeah, it was like, okay, yeah, that person's cool, that person has bad intentions, and I would always tell him, like, I have a feeling somebody's gonna get hurt here, and it's gonna be this person, and things would always happen like that. We used to live in Somalia town out here in California. And I remember this one time my brother and I were at home. It was like the evening, and we were washing our laundry. And yeah, my dad taught us to clean and everything since we were small. And I remember like this van pulls up, and I told my brother, I was like, I told him to be quiet, and we hid behind the door. And I told him, just be quiet. Don't try to make any noise. Those people have guns, and they're gonna do something bad. And then he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I was like, no, just watch. So, because we were like 6, he was 7, and we kind of like just like creeped down from behind the door, and they like busted in, and then they went into somebody's apartment. It was like 5 guys, and they took a couple people. And I was like, now that I'm older, I was like, if we would have made noise or something, they probably would have like hurt us. You know what I mean? And so after they left, they got inside the truck. My brother and I ran upstairs to our apartment, and I told my dad what was happening outside. And sure enough, we heard like gunshots in the parking lot. And I don't know what happened afterwards, because my dad told us to hide in the closet. But I remember having that feeling of something bad is about to happen. I need to hide my brother. Even if it's like simple, small things. Like, I've always been very protective of my older brother. Like, I've like people trying to fight him or whatever, like I would always just like get in between him, because I always knew something bad was gonna. It's like I get that feeling, and I'm able to like stop certain things only if people listen before they happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, all these things would happen like with the stuff that I would see with my dad. And then the first time I actually saw a demon, I was 9 years old. It was during the time that my dad gave us our last beating, and my brother and I were hiding underneath the table, and all of a sudden, so also I have the ability to tap out, like I could be here, but I can also like tap out and go into a different reality. And so while I'm here, like that day that we were underneath the table, I was like, something like the whole room spinned, and then I was standing like in a different dimension, and there was a demon that looks like the one from Insidious. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I think I
And the
have.
demon, yeah, it's the creepy one with the weird eyes. It's pointing at behind our backyard, like telling me to go across the highway. And I'm like, why? Because we used to live like right next to the freeway.
No.
And so yeah, so from what I was interpreting from this situation was that this demon was trying to tell me to kill myself.
Oh,
That
wow.
was the only way. Yeah, that was the only way to escape this reality. Like that demon wanted me to kill myself so he could take my soul.
Mm,
And I thought about it in that moment. I didn't know yet that that wasn't the way to do things, because obviously we were suffering a lot. My dad was making my brother and I go through a lot of stuff. Um, and I thought about it. I thought about, crossing that highway. But then when my brother touched my hand, like I came to, and my dad continued to beat up on us, and that demon like kind of went away. But then I saw it again, like throughout my life, whenever like bad stuff would happen. Like it's just that demon of deception and temptation to do things that I shouldn't do. Um, so yeah, that was with during the time that I was with my dad, the kind of stuff that I would see. And I would, like I said, I would tap into a different, I don't know how to say, like, not time traveling, but I don't know. I think it was just my way of escaping my reality, because I was going through a lot, like my mom wasn't in the picture. My dad got custody of us. My mom, I'm not really exactly sure, like, the history. People don't really open, like, the people that I need to hear the truth from don't tell me the truth. My mom denies a lot of stuff, but my mother also was involved in with bad people, so we were with my dad for a while, and then that time that I was living with my dad, um I was exposed to a lot of stuff, like all types of abuse, physical,
mm,
verbal, mental, and sexual assault in the hands of my father, because he was the main person.
wow.
Um, yeah, so I would escape that reality and like take myself somewhere else. And I feel like God allowed me to do that so I wouldn't be able to know exactly everything that was happening to me. Because it was bad, I've had like, for me, like my dad would, again, he would teach us not to be afraid of things. um, he would put the gun to my head. That's how bad it was. He would put the gun to my head and threaten to kill me if I didn't do the stuff he asked me to do. And for me, that's like, who would do that to a kid? Like, I mean, I know he didn't care even about us. If he's doing this to other children, I knew he would take my life. You know what I mean? And he
Mm,
would always tell me, if you don't do what I tell you, I'm gonna shoot you in the head, and then your brother's gonna wake up and see you dead, and it's gonna be your fault. He's gonna be traumatized for the rest of his life.
wow.
Um, so yeah, I think part of that trauma was where I started to escape this reality and tap into the spiritual world, And for me, religion when I was young was very confusing, because again, my dad practiced all this dark stuff. Then he tried to take us to a Christian church where they cast out demons, and then he wanted us to become Muslim. So it's like,
Mm,
I'm trying to like find my way with Jesus or something, but nobody's teaching me how. And so then after that, I'm 9 years old, and they removed me and my brother from my dad's house because of all the abuse that's happening. And then we're at Polinsky, which is like an orphanage we're there for a while. And from there we go with my aunt, and then from my aunt we go with my mom. There with my mom, a bunch of stuff started happening to me at my mom's house too. So I continued to like tap out like of this reality. Like I would disassociate a lot. And that's where I started getting my nickname in middle school, Dreamer, because I'm always daydreaming and I'm like not even paying attention.
Mm.
And I would talk to my teachers and I would tell them the things that I was seeing. And they were like, oh, you have a really big imagination. Why don't you start writing about it?
Mm.
So in middle school, that's when they started encouraging me to write. And I did. I would journal a lot about the things that I was seeing. And the teachers would be like, one day you're going to become a good author. You should have these things published. Of course, I lost all the stuff I wrote, and I think about it all the time because I used to love writing poetry. I used to love writing stories, but it was just things that I would see a lot, right? Um, so I'm at my mom's, and I'm 12 years old, and then that's when I get exposed to drugs.
Mm.
My mother, yeah, she had kicked me out, and I ended up in a situation where I was inside of a garage of a drug lord, and he kept me captive for a couple months, and he had
Wow.
me trafficked. Yeah, it was horrible. That was when I was my first time trying meth, and then me tapping into the reality of the spiritual world was different then. Like it was dark. It was
Mm.
dark. The stuff that I was seeing, all the entities and demons that were around the men that were around with the drugs. It's like because he had a meth lab and then he had the garage where he had me in. So when he would make me go with him to the meth lab, I would see them making and mixing and whatever, but I would see these dark entities around them. And I'm like, this is why people who do these drugs see these because they're putting it in the drug or whatever, And I'm 12 years old.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm 12 years old and I remember like it was like for me, like experiencing meth and this psychosis that comes with it. It's to me, it's not really psychosis. It's you're tapped
Yeah.
into a different, yeah, you tapped into a different, yeah, like dimension with the drug, That's why they tell you not to do drugs. And I remember like this incident where I'm sitting on this recliner and I could feel like I'm in hell. Like I feel like the couch go on fire, but I could visually see it and I could feel it. And there's these demons dancing around me. And then it gave me like a flashback of one of the rituals my dad did when we were little with the people. And I was like, maybe this is what the drugs they were using when I was little and they
Wow.
were doing these rituals. And I could just remember like vividly hearing the little like the demons dancing around the fire. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I don't want to feel this anymore. This is too scary. I don't want to keep doing these drugs. But the drugs were given to me. Um, it really sucked because, I'm 12 years old seeing all these things and I felt like I was going crazy. And
Mm.
then finally when I left there, like I went back to my mom's and she never really knew anything about the stuff that happened to me. They have a law where you can keep things confidential from your parents. And it was bad enough that my mom wasn't supportive of me when she found out that my father had raped me. She made me go through all those medical tests all by myself. She walked away from me. And then
Wow.
she would have this thing whenever she was mad, she would say stuff like, oh, you loved what your dad did to you because you would tell him you loved him. And I'm like, I'm a little kid who is always going to tell their dad or their mom that they love him because they don't know what is right from wrong. I had to learn that what was done to me was not right because I was groomed, you know?
Mm.
So, yeah, by the time I'm like 12, 13 years old, I'm already diagnosed with like PTSD, severe depression. Um, what's the other one? I forgot what the other one's called, but where I feel intense emotions and stuff.
Mm.
And I'm like, it's not that. Like, I hated being labeled or diagnosed when I know that it's something spiritual. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
again, like I said, I'm an empath. I can like seriously like feed off of people's energy, which is why I kind of am a loner because the energies are always not so good.
Mm.
Um, and it was especially like my mom, her energy was heavy. Like that woman, man, she used to beat on
Mm.
me all the time too. And
Wow.
she wouldn't believe me. She would always call me crazy. She said she was going to have me institutionalized and be put on medication. And instead of like listen to me, and then she started taking me to church, which is a Catholic church. And She had me go to those Catholic schools where you have to learn how to do your communion and all that stuff. And all of that to me came easy. I remembered all the prayers and all that. But again, I never wanted to accept that religion as my faith. And I told her, I was like, you guys are talking in this religion. All you guys do is talk about all these things. You talk about the Virgin Mary, but why are you guys not talking about Jesus? Where is God in this? And I was always very like defiant and like resistant to the religion my parents wanted me to go in. And I told her, I was like, you need to let me find my own way. And she would always be like, no, you need God. You need God because you're seeing stuff and that's not normal. And I was like, well, it's your guys' fault. You guys exposed me to a lot of stuff since I was a little kid. Like, you know, they also say that trauma opens up this part of your brain that, you know, in the spiritual world, we know it's spiritual, but in the psychology world, it's a trauma thing. So again, like I said, I'm back at my mom's house, and there I'm still going through a lot of stuff. Now I have her younger brother, who's my uncle, and then one of my cousins, which is her nephew, that just came from Mexico. They're both a couple years older than me. Now these two are also molesting me, and so it's like, again, like I'm like trying to escape my reality. I'm not doing drugs anymore, but I'm still able to see stuff. And I would tell my mom, but she was just like, oh, estás loca. And I'm like, you know, sometimes it would scare me because I'd be like I hate being alone. I hate being alone because I'm always able to see, like, you know, from the corner of my eye, I could see something there, and, you know, or, you know, like I could hear voices. I could hear voices, people talking like very quickly in different languages. And I'm like, what are you guys trying to, like, who is that? Like, what are you guys like? I would always like, I hated being alone or the dark. I hated being alone and in the dark. So I always have like lights everywhere. Like even now, like I have my kids' rooms have like little lights. I have a lot of like night lights in my room. Like I have to always have lights somewhere because I feel like because of the stuff that I did, I still feel like there's always gonna be like a weak point where I could get pulled into that. And then I'll get more into that. So as I'm getting older, you know, by the time I'm 15 years old, my mom ends up abandoning me and I'm homeless. I'm sleeping at the parks. I'm sleeping on the school playgrounds. I'm sleeping in cardboard boxes behind buildings. And I remember my older daughter's dad, he started sneaking me into his grandma's house, and eventually I ended up getting pregnant, and I started staying with his family. His family, they're gang affiliated, so that relationship did not last too long. But while I was with him, he also experienced things with me, which kind of freaked him out, you know? I remember being like, I'm not sure how pregnant I was. I just know that I had a big stomach, and we're hanging out at our friend's house. It's me, my ex, and his best friend, and his ex, and we're all hanging out. And then we start walking over this hill, going towards our house. And you know, it's a field, so they have like tall grass, you know, tall enough, maybe like 4 feet, 5 feet, and no, like 3 feet. And so we're walking across, and then all of a sudden we see something fast run. And then they ran and left me there. And I was like trying to wobble and I'm trying to catch up with them. But then I felt something like dark and it ran again. But I don't know if you know what a duende is.
Yeah.
It's a duende. And I was like, what is even that? And I got so scared and I was like, in my room, my stomach started to hurt.
Wow.
And but I didn't even run anymore. I froze. And it was just, we were looking at each other and I was like, what you gonna do? What you gonna, like, we were just like having a stare off. And then like my ex, he grabbed me and he's like, let's go. And he saw it too. So I remember after that, we just all looked at each other and we're like, we're not gonna speak of this because what if nobody believes us? Like, what if it's something evil? And after that, like not too long after that, I'm sleeping and he's sleeping next to me and I'm having this dream, but I'm having sleep paralysis, right? And in the same time, he's seeing something on top of me. In my dream, I'm being chased by the Grim Reaper and it pushes me down and I'm on my stomach and it's reaching through my back and it's pulling my soul out and I'm having a hard time breathing. He told me that he was trying to wake me up because I couldn't breathe, but he also saw like a little demon on my chest. And he said it was like a tiny demon on my chest. And he's like, it was really hard to wake you up. And he got really scared. He called his grandma, and his grandma started doing a prayer. And then after that, he said that there was always like this, like a dark figure that was always around me, like with a hat. And I was like, I like to bring humor into it. I'm like, did you talk to it? Like, did you ask him his name? And he was like, no, for real, it's always standing right there in the corner. And so I'd go stand in the corner, and I was like, bro, this corner. And he would be scared, you know. I could see it too. I could see it too, but I didn't want him to know that I could see it. I just didn't also want that thing to know that I was afraid, you know.
Wow.
Although deep down inside, I was freaking out.
Oh,
Like, I would
wow.
always ask, like, what do you want from me? Like, are you here for me or them, or what's going on? But so that was that. And then my premonitions, my dreams that I would have, sometimes, like I said, when I have these dreams and bad things happen, I feel a lot of guilt, and then I get into some severe depression because I felt like it was my fault. My ex, it was his first day of school, and I remember the night before I had this dream where a voice told me something bad was gonna happen and that I had to tell him not to go to school. So when the morning came and I told him, I begged him, I was like, please don't go. Something bad's gonna happen. Like, please don't go. He's like, I have to go. You know, it's my first day. I'm on probation. And I was like, all right, fine. So then I go back to sleep. He leaves to school. Not even half an hour passes by, and I'm dreaming, and I hear a voice getting loud, like, wake up, it's happening right now. And then I hear somebody on the door knocking hard, and it's his grandma. And she's like, get up, we gotta go. It's, you know, she said the name of him and his uncle. They got hurt. So we get into the car, and they drive us to their school. And sure enough, like, there was cops, news reporters, ambulance, firefighters, everything like was blocked off. And I remember having a difficulty time breathing on my left side, and I almost fainted because I saw all the blood. I have a thing. Yeah, I have a thing for blood. I hate seeing blood because when I was little, like I said, my dad and the stuff they would do, he would make us do stuff, you know. I always ask myself if I'm a murderer because, you know, even though I was little and I was forced to do these things, I feel like if I still have accountability for the stuff that we were told to do, you know. But I just know that all the blood, it grosses me out. So now that I'm older, like when I see blood, I have really bad PTSD and flashbacks of the stuff we did when we were little. So when I saw that blood, I almost fainted, and his friend catches me, and he stands me up, and then I see his uncle walking around with his like intestines and guts hanging out. And I was like, what happened? And then I look to my left side, and then they're doing like CPR on my ex. They're working on him. And long story short, what had happened is that they went to school, and they were on the rival enemy's territory, and they tried to jump my ex and his uncle, but because they were not losing or backing down, they ended up stabbing them. His uncle got stabbed 2 times, my ex got stabbed 4 times, and he fought for his life. Like, he was on life support for about a week, and it was all bad. Yeah, so after that, like, I would still see stuff. Like, I remember there was this old man that used to come around a lot into their family. And I remember, like, I predicted his death, and I was like, because it was like a scent. He had a scent to him. And I was like, you don't look so well. Like, have you gone to get checked at the doctor? Maybe you should stop drinking, you know? Because he was one of those old men that just come kick it with his grandma and drink. And I remember he came and he gave me like some money, and I was like, what is this for? He's like, you've been so nice to me. This is for you and your daughter. I was like, okay, cool. And I felt like that was his way of saying goodbye. And I remember I told my ex, I was like, I have a feeling this is gonna be the last time we're gonna see him. And sure enough, the next day, nobody had heard from him because he used to be the security guard for the strawberry fields. And they went to go check on him a couple days later, and he had already passed. So, and he was all by himself. Um, yeah, so I ended up leaving that relationship, and then I moved on to another relationship with a guy who's native. Him and his family, they're native. And so with them, I experienced a lot more stuff. Um, you know, there was I think like the most craziest thing was with them, like they actually did an exorcism on one of their nieces.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, it was like something you would see in a movie. So the stuff started happening in our house. I had just had my twins, and I remember I was sleeping and I hear a voice like waking me up, like, get the kids out right now, get the kids out right now. So I wake up and I get my twins and my 2-year-old daughter out of the room, and we get out of the room and we're sitting in the on the couch, and the guy I'm with, he's like, what's your problem? What's going on? And I was like, look, and I pointed to the door, and then you see 2 duendes sticking their head out. And
Wow.
he's like, oh my God. He's like, Ama, Ama. So he starts calling his mom. His mom runs down the hallway. She passes the room and she's like, hey, wait. Like, she looks and she's like, what is that? And I was like, you guys see it too, right? You guys see it too. And she's like, how did you know? And I told her, I was like, something in my dream woke me up, told me to get the kids out. And I don't know if it's true. I've heard like a lot of people say, like, in the Mexican culture, that, duendes try to come after kids, or
Yeah.
they try to mess with you. So the voice that woke me up was telling me to protect my children.
Yeah.
So after that, we just stayed in the living room, and they had a priest come and like bless the house and pray over that room. And he was like, there's something dark in that room, something really dark that happened in that room. And so they were trying to figure out what it was. And I was like, I'm getting the chills just remembering. They didn't know what had happened. So this something in that property, that land, something had happened, but nobody knew. I remember being sick, really sick, where I had like a really high fever. And the guy I was with told me that I was talking to somebody. I was talking to somebody, and I told them, yes, I remember it was a little Chinese boy, and he was hiding in the closet right there, and he was like, crunched up like this. And so they started doing their investigation, and they ended up finding out that there was a little boy who had passed away in that house, that he was tortured, and that's where he died, in that spot. And
Mm.
I was like, bro, don't even play like that. That's crazy. Like, I was like so sick to the point that I had tapped into to that realm where, you could see the dead people. I'm like, man, maybe I was dying too or something. So after that happened, his cousin next door, because we lived in duplexes, his little cousin, she was 15 at the time, she started acting strange. Like, she just stopped
Mm.
talking, she stopped eating, she got pale, she had dark circles in her eyes. So they called the priest again. And my son was playing around their house, and he found a picture on the floor. No, somebody had found a picture on the floor. And my son was at this time, my son's already 4. He's like, oh, that's my friend, mom. She lives in her room. And so I remember they started doing videos and pictures and whatever. And they took a picture of her, and through the mirror, you could see the picture of that girl standing behind her, like holding her shoulder. So
Mm.
that's when they're like, we're gonna have to perform an exorcism. And I was like, I don't know if I want to be here for this. And so
Yeah.
there's like 20 people in the living room, and they have her right there. And I'm sitting there like across from her. I think that was my first mistake, is standing or sitting across from her. So I'm
Mm.
sitting there, and I hear somebody playing in my ear, like with the candy wrapper. And I'm like, what? Like, there's nobody sitting that close enough to me. And then it gets louder, and I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna have to go. And then the thing from my jacket, somebody pulls it and lets it go. The second time, everybody saw it, and I was like, all right, I'm out of here. So I left, and I was like, you guys let me know how it goes. I don't want to be part of this. And so that same night, after that exorcism that they had done, um my ex's mom was like, maybe we should have done something to protect our house, because what if something comes over here?
Mm.
That same night, we all heard something walking back and forth in the hallway. It sounded like heavy, like steps, but like in heels. And I was too scared to look. He was too scared to look. So then we're texting back and forth with the cousins and the tias, because it's 4 duplexes. So we're all texting each other, like, do you guys hear that? Do you guys see anything? And then all of a sudden it stops, and then you hear like something jump, and it's on top of the roof. And
Ah.
then so we're like, oh, what is that? What is that? And so I guess his cousin looks out through the window, through the crack of her thing, and she's like, oh my God, you guys, there's like this thing on top of it. It's like 9 feet tall. It looks like a half goat, half man, and it has red eyes, and it has horns on it. And we're like, oh no. And then so his mom comes out and starts doing this prayer. And then she looks at me, she told me, she's like, it's you. It's you. You're the one that brought, because she's like, before you came around, nothing of this was happening. And I was
Wow.
like, I'm not summoning anything. No, but there's something wrong with you. And so then I was like, at this point, I'm like, well, is there something wrong with me? Because we would see a lot of stuff. Like, we would go to the casino with her a lot. She loved going to the casino. And on the drives back, I remember first on the way there, we thought we saw somebody, like a woman standing in the middle of the highway. But we're like, no, it's nothing. But then we saw it again when we were coming back. So to be sure, we got off the exit and we went back again to see if it was what we thought we saw. It was a woman standing with a white gown, and she looked gray with her hair like all like wet, and she was just pointing her hand up and down, going like this. Like,
Mm.
and we're like, oh my God, like I started to cry because I was like, I thought I was the only one that could see these things, but they saw it too, you know? And I was like, maybe she just passed away or something, and then she just doesn't know like that she's dead or something. Um, so yeah, like we saw stuff. And then for her, my ex-mother-in-law, when she started to get scared and she started calling me a witch, was when I told her a dream that I had. I was very specific with the day and the time, and I even described the doctor that I saw in my dream. I told her it was a Tuesday, 2 p.m. You went to this doctor who looks like Mr. Miyagi, and he told you that your cancer came back. And then she looked at me and she's like, Eres una bruja. And I was like, why? She's like, you never knew I had cancer. I was like, you're right. I don't know that you had cancer. Do you have cancer? And she was like, my cancer just came back. The doctor told me last week, but I wasn't ready to tell anybody. And I was
Mm.
like, I started to cry because, for one, I'm finding out she has cancer. And this is the first time in my life that I have a woman in my life that I connected to. And so yeah, I helped take care of her, like taking her to her chemos, you know, making sure she took all her meds. You know, I was her caregiver. And but she was like, next time you have dreams like that, don't tell me because I feel like making it happen. And then and it's crazy because even things that are irrelevant to my life, my twins were born June 25th, right? And for their first birthday, the night before, I had a dream, and I had told the cousins and everybody that lived in the duplex because we were going to celebrate their birthday. But I told them in the morning, I was like, I have a dream that after we cut the kids birthday cake, that something happened in the news and the whole world goes silent, like something really bad happened. And
Mm.
they're like, oh, there you go again with your dreams. Just let it be a good day. It's your kid's birthday. And so sure enough, you know, I had that in the back of my head. So I was kind of scared, you know. So sure enough, you know, the birthday thing happens. As soon as they cut their cake, just like in my dream, the news goes on that Michael Jackson had just died.
Oh, wow.
I was like, bro, I told you guys. I'm like, and my mother-in-law, she started crying because she was a big Michael Jackson fan. She's like, you killed Michael Jackson. I was
Wow.
like, no, I didn't. I was like, no, I didn't. And she's like, you knew he was gonna die. I was like, I mean, I didn't know he was gonna die. I knew something bad was gonna happen. Um, and then also, I had a miscarriage around the
Oh.
same time I was with that guy, and I had the dream where at the exact time that it happened,
Mm.
and sure enough, when I went to the doctor, they told me the time that the baby's heartbeat stopped, and I was like, "That's crazy," and I felt again like it was my fault because I had dreamt it. And then when my ex's grandmother passed away, I remember it was like Thanksgiving after the dinner. I remember I was having a lot of anxiety. And that's usually what happens is like my bones start to hurt. My body starts to feel very like my bones are pulsing and I start to feel like restless. Like I can't stay still. And I try to like calm myself down. And that specific day, I remember I told them, I was like, something bad is gonna happen. And they're like, no, it's Thanksgiving. Just don't start. Go to your room. Maybe you're tired. Go to sleep. So they sent me to go to the room to take a nap or whatever. And then sure enough, they start knocking on the window and they tell us, oh, grandma just went into cardiac arrest. And I
Mm.
was like, oh my God, no. And yeah, she passed away a couple of days later. But
Mm.
yeah, they were very like, but they're native, so they're very big on spirit, you know. They're like,
Yeah.
so they're like, we need to take you on a retreat. We got to get you cleansed up and da 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 da. I never did that with them, although I did do it down the road now with my now husband, and I'm a lot better at the stuff, tapping into stuff differently.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, with them, those are the things that I experienced, and then fast forward, I like let okay in 2012, my uncle commits suicide, But
Mm,
6 months prior to that, I kept having visions. Like I'll be driving, I'll be working, I'll be cooking, and the vision would just pop in my head where my whole family is mourning somebody's death.
mm,
And I was like, well, who is it? I'm trying to figure out who it is. In my head, I thought it was going to be one of my grandparents because they're older. And then my grandmother had just been diagnosed with cancer. So
mm,
for 6 months, I keep having these visions of my family crying and crying and crying. And then it happens. I remember my mom calling me and telling me that I needed to go to her house. And so I drive to her house. And as I'm driving, I literally pass the street where it happened. And I remember seeing the news, the cops, everything there. And in that moment, something told me it was them, my uncle and my
mm,
cousin. And I'm bargaining with God. I'm like, please, if something happened to them, let it be something we can come out of. Like, we'll pray harder. I'll connect closer to you. Like, I'm trying to bargain because I already knew it was them. And so I pull up to my mom's house and only half of my family's there. They're crying, and I'm like, "What's happening? What's going on?" My brother's not there. My uncle's not there. My cousins are not there, and a couple other people weren't there. So I'm like already trying to figure out who it is. And then that's when my sister drops to her knees and she starts crying and she's like, "They're dead." And then she tells me the names of my cousins who passed, and she said that my uncle shot them in their sleep. And I was like, "I don't
what?
believe you." Yeah, I'm like, "I don't believe you." I'm running out of the house, trying to call him, telling him to answer the phone. And but before that day, so I saw him the day before. Um, so 4 weeks before he died, he would come to my house because my ex-father-in-law was a DJ and so was he. So I thought he was coming to do, music.
Mm,
And 1 week he comes, they talk. Another week he comes, he talks. The third week that he comes, he had sold me some stuff, some furniture, because he was separating from the woman he was with for so many years. And
mm,
so I had given him half the money. And the fourth week, that's when he came again. And he goes to give me a hug, and something inside me was angry at him. I did not know what it was,
wow.
but my spirit, my soul was angry at him. Like my spirit knew he was gonna leave. I didn't know, I couldn't understand it. And I remember I kind of backed off a little bit, and my ex was like, "Don't be rude. I don't know about tu tío. Give your uncle a hug. Like he came here to say hi to you." And I was like, "Oh, fine, whatever." So I hug him, and when I hugged him, I felt that strong like anger. And so I pushed away, and I was like, and I looked at my uncle, and he told me, he's like, "Okay, I love you, Naniece. I'll see you tomorrow," because that's when I was supposed to see him to pay him the rest of the money. And tomorrow never came because he was gone. And
Wow.
so yeah, I made the biggest mistake to go into the hotel after it happened. Because for 5 years I had the same nightmare over and over again. I went into the hotel, and obviously, to me, like I talked about this on another podcast, um, I felt like he was set up. When I went to the owners to ask permission to spend some time in there alone, because I was gonna go in there and try to summon him and talk to him. This is what I was thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the owners were like, "We're very sorry about what happened. We didn't know that the kids were involved until we saw the news because he checked in with the guy." I was
Mm,
like, "Really? Do the cops know this?" And so when I went in there, it obviously looked like there was a struggle. According to the autopsy, the kids were shot in their sleep and they didn't struggle and they passed away quickly. So who was all that blood? Who did it belong to? You know what I mean?
oh,
So for like 5 years after that, I had to take medication to sleep, to not have nightmares, because I kept having dreams of my uncle running and telling me to come, and he was trying to show me something. And I run with him and I'm like, "What are you trying to show me? What are you trying to show me?" And then like I would also have dreams of my cousins in the where they're buried, and that they come out and they're like zombies. And I was like, this is not how I want to keep living my life. So I started drinking, and that's when I started experiencing with cocaine. And it was just a lot of heavy stuff. So from 2012 to 2017, I'm drinking heavily, I'm doing cocaine. And then I made that impulsive decision to leave the guy I was with, to marry my best friend, who I've known since I was like 15. And which was like one of the dumbest things I could have done. But with grief, people do stupid stuff.
mm,
Um, so when I'm with my best friend, he introduces me to cocaine. So now I'm drinking and doing cocaine and smoking weed. And In 2017, my ex-mother-in-law who had cancer, she passes away. 2 months
Oh.
later, my grandmother passes away from septic blood, but she had cancer too. And in that around that same time, my best friend was like, I don't want to be with you no more. So I'm like wilding out, doing the most just to get attention. And that's when I experienced my first death.
Mm.
I overdosed. I overdosed on cocaine and alcohol poisoning. I remember walking because I got into an argument with my ex, the one that his mom passed. He's like, my mom would be so disappointed in you. This is not how she wanted you to live your life. And I was
Wow.
like, you don't know anything about me. Like, you don't know what I'm going through. And I'm like, here's your money because he's the one that gave us a ride back from the bar. And then I walk away and I'm walking down the hill. My friend who was with me was chasing after me. He's like, you need to hold up. You're not okay. You're like really drunk. And as I'm walking, I remember my chest starts hurting really bad and I'm having a hard time breathing. And then everything starts spinning and I collapse. I fell into some bushes, which was funny. And he calls an ambulance because he's like trying to, help me. But at the time, I'm a big person. I was like almost 300 pounds. So he couldn't really help me. He's like this tiny person who weighs like 120 pounds. He couldn't really help me. So he calls for help. And while this is all happening, I'm experiencing my death. My soul is leaving my body. Like I knew that my soul is very different to what human is because when I look down, I don't see my hands, I don't see my feet. I'm like an energy, like light. But at the time my light was not bright. It was really dark. And I'm looking
Mm.
around, everything stood still. Time stood still. Everything was still happening, but there was no sense of time. I saw it was raining that day, but I saw the rain stood still. So I see the droplets everywhere. And
Mm.
when I'm experiencing this, I can feel God, the presence of God, but it was not anywhere near me. And I was like, well, what happens now? Like, is it true? Am I gonna go to hell because I'm doing drugs? Like, where's my dead relatives? Don't they say that when you're dying, somebody meets you there and they walk you to the heaven or whatever? So I'm having all these, even in my death, I'm still being defiant. And
Mm.
I'm like, God, where are you? Like, where are you? And I could see them, doing CPR on me, connecting me. They had to like pump my stomach and everything. And I was close to God but far from him because it was not my time. So I get
Mm.
brought back. Yep, I get brought back and I stopped doing cocaine because I was like, I never want to go through that again. That actually hurt. And so I stopped. I still kept drinking somewhat and I made my acceptance of that relationship finishing. So I separated from my ex-husband and then I had moved on. I was by myself for a while and then I met another guy. And this is when CPS gets involved and takes my kids away the first time
Wow.
because they found out that I wasn't aware that my ex-husband who he was involved with, like he kept a lot of he had like two lives.
Mm.
He lived two lives. Like with us, he was a provider. He had a normal 9 to 5 job, but like he would tell me he would go see his parents. His brother would be like, "Hey, where's so and so? He's not here." I was like, "He left with you guys like hours ago." And I was like, that's when I started to find things out that he wasn't who he said he was. Apparently, he was also part of an organization and gang lifestyle, and he was selling drugs. I'm like, I married my dad. I married my dad, literally.
Wow. Wow.
um, so I found out through this because when my daughter would have visits with him, she mentioned at school she started showing depression, and they're like, "Well, what's going on?" And then my daughter, I guess, told the teacher that she saw like substances on his folder, and she was learning about drugs at the time. So she's like, "I think it's drugs." So then CPS gets involved, and they're like, "We need you to leave your husband." I was like, "I already left him. I live in my own apartment. I have my own job. I have my own car. We're not together." Okay, well, you need to get a divorce and you need to get a restraining order. I was like, okay, I can work on that. But I just got this job. I'm single. I'm doing everything by myself. I need time. Because I didn't do it in that moment, they put on paperwork that I failed to protect my children. They came and removed my daughter and my son from me. And I went down a dark path. Like,
Mm.
I've been a mom since I was 16 years old. So when they took my kids away, I was like, and then not only that, because now I'm the mom I said I was never going to be, where the kids get taken away and, they get exposed to all this stuff. So I felt like I failed. So when they took my kids away, I'm already seeing this other guy who I should have known like was no good. He was on the run and he had a criminal record too. Um, So I started to one of my friends gets out of a residential treatment. She starts hanging out with me, and I'm going through all of this. And instead of these people like encouraging me to do better, they're like, okay, so let's do drugs. Started doing
Mm.
drugs. I started smoking meth again, and I was like, this is not working. I'm still hurting. I miss my kids. And so the guy that I'm dating, he was, and I didn't know he had a problem with drugs like that. He says, I know it's gonna help you feel better. And then they go to the pharmacy, they go get needles. And I didn't know she did drugs like that too until they did it. The first time they try to make me do it, I missed. And I was like, that's a sign I'm not supposed to do this.
Mm.
Second time, I was able to do it. I was an IV drug user for about a year and a half. Once I started, it was really hard for me to get off. But that's when like the psychosis got worse. It's like as the moment the drugs hit my vein, this veil came off.
Mm.
And I'm in this reality, but I can also see a different dimension. I started seeing some crazy stuff, and then there's this being that sits on the edge of my bed, and he's like, "You're about to see what things for what they really are. I've been trying to show you." And I was like, "Who are you, and what are you even talking about?" And I was like, "This must be some good stuff because I've never seen stuff like this before, you know?" And so this thing would talk to me, and it would tell me how to like see things. He would tell me to grab this mirror and what angle to put it so I could see things like differently, right? And it was just weird because I was like, I would tell the people almost, can you guys see that? They're like, man, you're on a sick one. We can't see nothing. But there were other people that could, you know? So I started seeing like these 12 beings always all around. And I saw like some really scary stuff. I remember the guy that I was with at the time, he recorded some videos of me where I have no recollection of. I always say that when I was doing drugs, some kind of demonic spirit took over me and I was no longer there because I don't remember a lot of those things. He recorded me having a conversation with somebody and I'm playing with the pillowcase. And I started laughing. And in the recording, you could hear somebody laughing with me. And it was just
Mm.
me and him. So, he started to believe there was something there because he's like, wait, no. Like, he would always say that I was possessed, that I was the devil and stuff like that because I obviously, when I was doing drugs, I was a very mean person. And in this year and a half that we're together, we also started to I found out this guy was bisexual the hard way. He
Mm.
yeah, he would manipulate me and say that, "Oh, you want to see something fun? You want to experience this?" And I was like, "Okay, I was consensual to certain things because I'm like, I'm a grown adult, I want to see what this is all about." And sure enough, he had me hold his hand while he was being intimate with another guy. And then soon after that, there's more guys coming around. And so there's a bunch of orgies happening in my house. And while this is
Wow.
happening, there's these dark entities feeding off the energy. Like it was like
Mm.
you've seen Avatar, when they're sitting with the tree and they connect their little hair thingy and they're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
swaying back and forth. That's exactly how it was. While these orgies were happening, this dark energy was feeding off all that stuff that was happening. And
Mm.
I'm just sitting back like, this is gross. I'm like, this is gross. This doesn't feel good. But I didn't even care because I was just trying to not feel the pain of my kids not being there. And it got really bad. I remember my ex-husband started coming around. He was like, again, now I know that he's selling drugs. So now he's the one bringing the drugs to us. He starts shooting up with us and he starts doing drugs with us. And I remember he had a moment where we had to call his aunt and they institutionalized him to stabilize him because he was so sure. He said that he actually went to my neighbor's house. She was a stripper, and she was like, "You need to come get your dude because he's over here scaring my child. He swears that his brother's in here getting raped." And I was like, "What?" So we bring him upstairs, and he was like, "You don't understand." And he was crying. He's like, "I heard them. I heard they called me and they told me that you set him up, that you were gonna have him be raped because of what I did to you." And I was like, "What are you even talking about? Like, there's nothing bad happening here. Like, you need to calm down." And he was like, "Wait, it's happening. Do you hear them? They're raping him. They're raping him." And I was like, "Dude, you need to calm down." Like, we literally had to call his aunt, and she's the one that ultimately took him to get checked in and get him off the drugs and stuff.
Damn.
Yeah, that one scared me. Like, because he was so sure it was happening, and I could see in his eyes, I could see the fear in his eyes, and I saw what he saw. So I was like, "You're seeing it happen in real time, but it's not happening here. It's happening in a different reality." And he's
Yeah.
like, "But I could see it," and I was like, "I see it too." That's why I said I don't like looking into people's eyes, because when I looked into his eyes, because I saw how scared he was, I immediately understood what he was talking about. So after that, he kind of like drifted off a little bit and tried to sober up, and I'm still using. Um, and I didn't learn my lesson, because during this time I ended up having an ischemic stroke. Um, I remember while it was happening, I was trying to have a conversation and tell the guy I was with, like, I something's wrong with me. But he said that I froze and that I started talking very funny and that like my whole body went limp. So they took me to the hospital. I couldn't move half my body. I was there for a couple weeks. And that's when they ended up asking me, "What drugs are you on?" I was like, "Meth. I'm just shooting up meth." And they're like, "Well, because the test says that you're doing heroin and fentanyl." And
Oh.
I'm like, "There's no way." I was like, I never took that." And that's when I started to realize that the guy I was with was doing more than what I thought. Um,
Mm.
because I would have, like I said, don't remember certain things, because I would not, like, he would be the one that would make my shots, my needles, and I would just shoot them up. So I remember there's times where I would do my needle, my shot, and then I would lay back in bed, and I thought I was asleep, but then I would have these visions of him with another woman. And it was actually true. And I remember I would tell my ex-husband, I was like, he would drug me up and he would bring people around. He started, because, he started stealing my money. He started stealing my dope. He started stealing everything from me. And when I started to come to and realize this is what was happening, that's when he started putting hands on me, because he didn't want to leave. And every time I would try to grab my phone to call the cops, he would take my phone away and beat me up because he was on the run. And
Mm.
it started to get to a point where I was tired of it. And I remember I called my friend, the same friend that was there when I died the first time. And I was like, "I need help." He's like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" Like, and I was like, I opened up to him and I told him, "I've been using, and this is what's been happening, but I need help." So he contacts my mom and my brother, and his mom comes, and we're at the Denny's, and I'm asking for help. And my brother had said something that made me so upset that I went back to the house, and I was like, "This is just a dream. This is all a dream. In my dreams, when I die, I wake up to this real reality." So I was like, "I'm gonna wake myself up. This is it. I have to wake myself up." And I was just done with everything. I was like, "I miss my kids. I failed, blah, blah. I'm still dealing with a lot of childhood trauma. I'm still dealing with the trauma of my uncle dying. I'm dealing with the trauma with all the people that passed away, my mom, my grandma, my ex-mother-in-law." So I was like, "I have to wake up from this dream." And I told myself that if I cut myself, that I would wake up. But if I cut myself and I'm in the real world, then I'm gonna kill myself. And I was like, "Well, at least I'll end all my pain." So I ended up severing my arm, and I'm bleeding out, and I'm taken to the hospital. And because of all the drug use, my veins are all shot out. They can't find any veins on my arms.
Mm.
They even check my legs, and they try to get my neck. They missed the first time, so now I'm squirting blood from my neck, my arm, and so they had to use an ultrasound machine to get my other vein. At this point, I've already flatlined. Like, I see all this happening as I'm drifting away, and so that's the second time I died. Again, my experience, floating away. I see everything happening. My ex-husband's right there watching everything happen. He's like stuck and traumatized because he can't believe what's happening. And I remember the last thing that I screamed to him was, "Don't let them hurt me," because, I have very sensitive veins. And he just stood there. And then I could see the guy that I'm with, he's at the apartment still having his orgies while I'm over here dying.
Mm.
And yeah, that guy was straight evil. Like, so I'm at the hospital, they stabilize me. Again, while I'm experiencing my death, I feel God's presence again, but far away. And I could tell that his
Mm.
energy, like he was upset, like that he was upset because I intentionally try to take my life, right?
Mm.
And so during this time, I felt like I wasn't sure what was gonna happen, if I was gonna live or die. I know that I was fighting for my life because I became septic. My blood became septic, and I contacted MRSA while I was in the hospital. And all the antibiotics they were giving me weren't working. I was allergic to all of them. So I remember the nurses saying, "Oh, what are we gonna do? She's not gonna make it." And then one of the medications they gave me a severe allergic reaction. I ended up getting Redmond syndrome, and that's when your whole body turns red. I look like a tomato, and they were
Wow.
freaking. They didn't know what to do, so they're over here giving me a bunch of Benadryl, and I'm like having a hard time breathing because they gave me too much Benadryl. So I'm like, I'm gonna die here. So I remember I told my ex-husband, I was like, you guys need to get me out of this hospital. I'm gonna die here. And so they take me to another hospital. And that's where I started to get stabilized. But while I'm there, I'm stuck in this realm where it's like I'm not dead or I'm alive. I'm in between. And I'm asking God questions like, what do you want from me? Like, I don't know, like I already failed. Like, why did I have to go through all of these things? Why did you let this happen to me? Why did you let that happen to me? And there was no response, but I could feel the disappointment. And so I'm like, and then I started making a joke. I'm like, you don't want me, and the devil doesn't want me. You guys have me suffering in this hell with these people. And I'm like, why do you allow me to see all these things? Why do you allow me to feel all these things? I'm like, all these people are crazy, and they're making it seem like I'm crazy. And so I was just giving up. I didn't know how to fight. I remember my ex, the one that his mom died, him and his girlfriend came to see me at the hospital, and they were like, Dreamer, you look bad. I could hear the people talking to me while I'm like passed out or whatever. I could hear the conversations, and she was like kissing me. She was like, please get better. Your kids need you. Please, like, I can't believe you did this. And the guy was like, he's like, come on, Dreamer. Like, my mom wouldn't have wanted this for you. I'm so sorry for all the things that I said to you, but you have to fight for the kids. I remember that my ex-husband had called my mom, and he had told her, your daughter is not looking so good. I don't think she's gonna make it. And she had said, oh, pues hubiera matado. A mí, ¿por qué me dices? And that, like, oh my God. I mean, I was like, fuck. I was like, damn, she don't give a fuck. So
Yeah.
after that, I had already missed 2 weeks of visits with my kids. And then my little brother calls. My little brother is in Korea at the time because he's in the military, and his voice is what stuck with me. He was like, he's my little brother. He's like, I love him. He's like, I see him like if he's one of my kids because, when I met him, he was a baby and I helped raise him. So when he was like, do I have to go back home and say goodbye to my sister? Like that, I'm never gonna forget that. Like, I was like, I can't be selfish and just think about myself. And I remembered all the pain that my family felt when my uncle died. I'm like, I can't do that to them. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't even healed from what he did. And especially my brother, because my brother was the one that lived. My uncle was living with my mom, and my cousins were living with my mom. So it impacted them the hardest because they were living with him when all this had happened. So I was like, I have to fight for my life. I have to be strong. And so I remember I told God, I was like, I'll take accountability for what I've done, and I'm going to try to get better. So sure enough, I got better at the hospital. I get sent back home. But by this time, I lose everything, my job, my car my car got repossessed. I lost my apartment. Like, I got kicked out of the apartment, and I had nowhere to go. So then, at the time, my ex-husband was selling his drugs out of an abandoned house. And he's like, well, you can come stay here. And I was like, all right, I'll stay there until I get back on my feet. And we had decided we were not going to do drugs anymore. But then the guy that I was with I still hadn't left him because that guy was still beating on me, and I was scared to leave him. He comes with us, and then one person relapses, the other person relapses, and then the other, so we're getting high again. And this time, oh my God, yeah, it got bad. This time we decided we wanted to, I had shared with them the stuff that I did with my dad when I was little, and they're like, I don't believe you did this. We found a piece of wood, and he's like, make a Ouija board. I was like, what? He's like, make a Ouija board. I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, say less. So they gave me a blade, and I made a Ouija board. So the Ouija board has my blood all over it. And I was like, all right, let's play. So we opened up the game by first smoking meth, and then we started playing the Ouija board. And then there was another guy with us. So it's me, my ex-husband, and the guy that I was dating, and some other guy. Two of them were recording off their iPhones, and the rest of us, we were there like playing, right? So as we started to play, we felt the house shake. This house is abandoned, okay? There's no light on in this house. It's completely, everything's off. The house starts to shake like there was an earthquake. And we're like looking at each other like, did you guys feel that? And then we look outside to see if anybody else was like freaking out. And we're like, it must be the game. So, we're taking it as a joke, but we're all getting scared.
Mm.
Then after that, we start to hear noise, like a machine starts to turn on, like shoosh, shoosh, like a swirl, like a swishing sound. And we're like, what is that? And it starts to get louder. And we're just like, what is that? And then we see lights, like lights all around the house. Like if there was a spaceship over us. And
Mm.
our first thought was like, okay, it's the feds, or oh, we're about to get raided. So we're looking outside the door and somebody went to go hide inside of a closet. And we're like, no, there's nobody out there. So we're like, something is happening. And so after that, after we saw the lights and everything turn on, because like I said, this is an abandoned house, the lights were off. My ex-husband walks down the hall, up and down the hall to see if he sees anything. And then when he walks back through his camera, he shows me and he's like, look. And then I'm looking at the guy that I was dating, and there's like this demon standing behind him. And this demon's like 9 feet tall. And and he's there like hitting the pistol, and he looks up and he's like, you guys, I feel really cold. And we're just looking at him like there's somebody behind you. And the guy that was hiding in the closet comes out and he ran out of the house. He was like, I'm done. You guys are done playing this game. And so then we're like, maybe we should close this game out. And then the guy that I was dating, he was like, no, let's ask if whatever's in here, whatever we invited, if it's good or bad. His intention for wanting to play the Ouija board was because he wanted to reconnect with his mom who had passed away. My
Mm.
intention was like, I want to see if I can reconnect with people that passed away too, My ex-husband was just there to be there, So then when we asked the Ouija board if it was good or bad, it said, no, I'm not good. Like it spelled out no. And then are you bad? Yes. And then we asked, who are you? And it spelled out ZOZO. And they Googled what that meant, and they're like, okay, we got to stop playing this game. I threw it, and I was like, I don't want to play this game anymore. But after that had happened, I started seeing even weirder stuff. Like these weird creatures that would follow my ex-husband and my ex around. And they would make some weird noises. And I'm like, and they would do some weird stuff too. My ex, he started like piling up trash in
Mm.
this room. And then I always wondered, because I see sometimes the homeless people that are, using, they always pile up stuff too.
Oh.
And I was like, why is he doing that? Like, but then I started to realize like he was like putting up this shrine, and I was like, of trash though. And I
Mm.
would clean it up and he gets so mad. And he's like, what are you doing? I was like, that's just trash. He's like, no, it's not. What do you need it for? And so then he started doing it there and in another room. And it started freaking me out. But then I remember this one time I'm walking down the hall and I could hear like a creature in there eating. And I was like, oh, maybe it's like a raccoon or something. But then when I went in there, it was like this weird creature that's out of this world. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, shut up, leave it alone, leave it alone. And I was like, you know what it is? What is it? He's like, just go away. And he got all like offended and he like organized the trash again. And I was like, this is just getting weird. And so then he took the Ouija board one day and went to go he went to go play with it in the cemetery. And
Wow.
yeah. And yeah, he continued to have a lot of demonic spirits following him around. He got worse. His beatings with me got worse. I was in and out of the hospital. There was multiple police reports, and they just would never arrest him because he was really good at running. And then he would find where I was at. And I was also starting to have these visions of stuff he was doing. And like he would leave. He would leave, and I would know exactly where he was at and who he was with. And like I would tell him, and he's like, nah, you're just lying, you're just crazy, you're delusional, you're seeing stuff. I was like, yeah, I am seeing stuff, but it's the truth, because this is where you were at. You were cheating on me, you were doing this, you were doing that. And I tried to leave him multiple times. Like there was an incident where I even missed my court date because I was hiding in a room locked so that he couldn't get to me. He was even trying to break it with the chair and stuff. And you know, I missed my court date, and I remember praying and asking God to give me a sign. I was like, I need my life back. I want my kids back. I'm like, I'll go through any program that I have to. I'm like, just help me, you know. So then, about a week later, we ended up going to a church, and it was a Catholic church. But I was at this point, I was like, I need guidance. So I go to this church, and while he's getting high in the bathroom, this guy got high in the bathroom. Like, he's so disrespectful. I'm walking around. Yeah, that guy don't care. I'm walking around the church, and I see flyers, and there was this flyer of pregnancy and ultrasounds, and this nun comes up to me, and she said everything's gonna be okay, and she touches my shoulder, and she's like, it's gonna be a girl, and she's gonna be fine. And I was like, man, what are you talking about? And then that's when it hit me. I was like, I might be pregnant, you know, and I'm still using, so I'm like, this is gonna be bad. Like, I need help. And I remember I reached out to my brother and I told him, hey, I think I might be pregnant. And I told him, I was like, I think I might be pregnant. And he's like, okay, so what are you gonna do? I was like, well, I don't believe in abortions, but because I've been doing drugs, I might. And I didn't even finish saying the sentence because he smacked me. He was like, don't you dare. He's like, you know better than that. We were raised to not believe in abortions. God's giving you a baby for a reason. You need to get your shit together. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So I had talked to my ex-husband about it, and I told him, like, I need to leave this guy. And then I opened up to him and I told him um all the stuff that he had been putting me through, because even though my ex-husband was in and out of the picture because of the drugs and stuff, he was never aware of like all the orgies, all the all the sex parties we had, like, but he was there for the very last one. It was Valentine's Day. There was a guy who had came to buy drugs off of my ex-husband, and he like bumped into the guy I was with, and he had made a deal with him where he would give him a needle, drugs, his phone to watch porn in exchange for me. And he agreed to it.
Wow.
So pretty much I was raped by this complete stranger while I'm already pregnant with my daughter, and he allowed that to happen. And while this is happening, my ex-husband runs up and he's knocking on the door because he said he heard me crying. And so he stopped the situation. Him and his homies, they stopped the situation. They went and handled that guy. And the guy that I'm with, he's like out of it. Like, he's gone in the head. Like, I look into his eyes and there's nothing there because he's on so many drugs, you know? And I remember I went to go take a shower and he made me a video. He used to call his nickname for me was Hoochie. He made me this video where he is apologizing and he's like, you didn't deserve any of this. You were such a good girl before I met you. This is all my fault. I'm really sorry. I should have taken better care of you. That was the last video he had made. And then after that, my ex-husband, when he comes back, he's like, I need you to go to the store and just wait for me there. And I was like, okay. So as I'm leaving, the guy that I'm with, he picks me up, puts me over his shoulder because my ex-husband showed up with a bunch of dudes, 2 cars deep. And I already knew what they were going to do. They even told the guy I was with, his dad, like, this is what's going to happen because of what he did. Stay out of it or you're going to be taken care of too. And he's like, do what you got to do. And so he picks me up and runs off with me because he knows that if I'm over his shoulders, they're not going to do anything to him. So they're chasing him. And he was a track star in high school. So that's why he gets away from the cops and everybody. He ran with me over his shoulder, and it was raining that day. And finally he slips and we fall. And I was like, bro, like, leave me alone. If you can't love me, just let me go. And I remember, like, he punches me hard in my face. And he's like, oh, I'm never going to love you like my ex. And I was like, then go be with your ex. Like, leave me out of it, you know? And that's the same night that I had told my ex-husband, I was like, he hit me. He was hiding with me, and we didn't go back to the abandoned house that night. I had talked to my ex-husband the next night, and I told him, I was like, look, I want to leave him. And I told him I'm pregnant. We're still legally married. So he's like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. Like, I'm going to help you. We're going to get the kids back. We're going to get sober. I was like, okay, cool. So we had a plan. And then the next day he gets arrested. My ex-husband gets arrested, you know, drug charges. And I told the cops, because the cops rolled up next to me. I had gone to the store to get snacks, and they're like, they rolled the window down. And I'm crying because my ex-husband's in there. I'm like, you guys know you guys are arresting the wrong guy, right? I'm like, he's over there. He's in the house. And they're like, we just can't go in there. We need a warrant. I was like, well, what do you guys need for a warrant? Like the beatings that he had given me wasn't enough. Like there was another time where that same night I tried to leave. I ran into the car and I locked the doors and I called the cops. I had them on Bluetooth. The guy comes out, jumps in the back of the truck, starts hitting the windows, trying to break in. I'm driving and the cops are on the phone and I was like, he's here, he's trying to kill me, he's trying to kill me. He breaks the window and he jumps in and starts trying to beat on me. So I told the cops, I was like, he's gonna kill me. I'm like, I'm gonna kill him, we're gonna both die. And I told him I'm pregnant, like you guys need to help me. So he's trying to open the door and get into the truck. And I'm driving. So I'm driving and kicking him out. And finally, like he's dragging. So he's holding onto the door. I'm dragging him and they can hear everything. I was like, you guys are not hurrying up. This is the street that I'm in. I'm going to kill him. It's either me or him. And so he's like, pull over my feet, my feet. Like he had like third degree burns on his foot because of it. For 2 blocks, I dragged him and then he finally falls. And then I was like, I stopped the car and I was like telling them, this is the street that I'm at. Like, there's no end. Like, there's a big wall. You guys can get him right here. They had helicopters and everything. He jumped that fence. They chased him for a couple hours. They couldn't find him. And he told me that he was hiding inside of a doghouse with a dog. I was
Wow.
like, wow, I know. I was like, that's crazy.
Wow.
So the cops, they get to me and they take me to the hospital. And as I'm in the hospital, he comes in. He disguises himself. He always disguises himself as my gay cousin. So nobody suspected it was him. The cops had gone to get some coffee or something, and he walks in. And I wrote down on a piece of paper to tell the nurse, like, he's here. And I told her I'm gonna use the bathroom. So I walked to the nurse's station and I put the paper on the desk and I start to pull my hand away and I'm like trying to tell the nurse, like, look at my hand. And I saw him walking from behind one of those, those mirrors they have in the corner. And he comes and he's like, okay, it's time to go. And he grabs the paper and he throws it to the trash. And I'm in the hospital gown and he walks me out of the hospital and we leave. And that same night, I told him, I was like, I have a feeling this is going to be the last time and then I'm going to sleep with you. And he's like, oh, don't say that. Why do you say that? And I didn't want to sleep next to him or anything. I ended up leaving him. I went to my sister-in-law's house, but he found me. I didn't think he would, and he did. And he found me, and the whole night he was trying to come in, and she was like, you can't come in here. You can't come in here. So he finally leaves. And then the following day, when she had left to the hospital because she was having issues, I remember falling asleep, and he broke into the house. And I woke up to him suffocating me and had his knee on my chest and my stomach, and he's just beating on me. Like he beat me so much, so many times on my head. And he kept saying, I don't want to have a stupid baby with you. Like he was just beating on me and he was suffocating me. And so that was a pretty bad fight. And I fought for my life too. I'm 120 pounds. He's like 190, 200, and he's like almost 6 feet tall. I'm only 5'4". So I fought for my life. He stabbed me 4 times, twice in the face and twice in my arm.
Wow.
And I grabbed the knife and I stabbed him back like 3 times too. So I just remember by the time the cops got there, I collapsed and they busted the door open and he ran through the back and he got away again. And I just remember like collapsing. And the next time that I remember waking up was in the ICU, but that was my 3rd death, was when that happened. He had beaten me really bad and I had lost a lot of blood. And so they had to give me 2 blood transfusions and, put me on antibiotics. And they told me that I was about to lose my baby. And I remember as I was dying, I was like, I told God, I was like, take me, but not my baby. Like this baby doesn't deserve it. You gave her to me for a reason. I was like, let this life beat the death that should happen right now. And so I felt God's presence a little bit closer, but still not. But I don't feel like it was close to me. I felt like it was close to my baby. So yeah. He actually did not get arrested yet. He came to the hospital disguised as my gay cousin, and he said, "You're never gonna get away from me. I'm gonna kill you if that's the last thing that I do." And I remember because I couldn't move. They had me on this neck brace, and my legs had braces on them too. and they had me on medication because of all the pain that I was in. I had so many bumps, like this whole part of my face was bruised. And yeah, it was really bad. Like I had to look at those pictures when they made me go to court, but I didn't want to. But he came, and then my sister came, and that's when she recognized him, and she started screaming, and it was a whole chase. They told me that they caught him like in the fields. I'm in California. I live in California, like towards like the border, and they have like little ranches back here. They said they found him running next to horses. I was like, that's crazy. That's
Wow.
so they caught him running in a field, and the dogs were the ones that caught him. Because he was on America's Most Wanted too. My ex-husband had told me that when he got arrested, that they didn't take him to jail. They took him to this office where they had this operation thing, and they had his picture on there. So like the marshals wanted him, National City, San Diego, all the police department in this county was looking for him because he had he had extreme criminal record, and I
Wow.
found out all this later. I was another one of his victims. He has three babies, mom, me, the second and the first one. The first one had left. She left the state to leave him. She said he didn't put hands on me, but the first time he raised his voice at me and tried to put hands on me, I grabbed my son and I left. She left out of the state. The second one, same thing. She lost custody of her daughter because of the disputes that would happen when he was in his drug addiction. I heard a story that he threw the daughter out the window, and
Wow.
yeah, and that's why they removed her. Um, and then the girl he was with before me, the one he said he could never love me like her, I remember she would reach out to me and she was like, I'm just trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. Your life is gonna go to hell. Like he's gonna hurt you. She told me that she was a normal person. She lost custody of her son too. He got her addicted to heroin, and that he
Wow.
used to beat up on her too, and he would make her do drugs, and he would pretty much traffic her because that's what he was doing to her, and that's what he did to me. And all for drugs. And like for me, it was like not that much of a big deal because I felt like this was already part of my life because I've been exposed to it since I was a kid. So I'm like, oh, I guess I made acceptance with it. I'm like, this is just what I am. This is all I'm good for. I felt I was worthless. I didn't value myself for my life, because I thought that's as good as I would get. That's what the devil wanted me to believe. Um, so while I was at the hospital and he finally gets arrested, I got interviewed by a program called 2911, and it's after the Bible verse 2911. And I was accepted into their program on Mother's Day. And that's where I was able to connect back into like my faith and stuff. And I got sober there. It's a maternity home that helps moms, get sober or whatever, stabilize. And I was there for about a year. I had my daughter there. I got my kids back. I got my apartment, and I started going to church again. But then, so this all happened in 2019. I get my apartment in the beginning of 2020 after New Year's, and I got my kids back. So everything's fine. And then my ex-husband gets out of jail, and we're still legally married at this point. And he was like, we're both sober now. We should work on our marriage. I'm not going to do the stuff that I used to do anymore. I want my family back. And my best friend at the time, she was like, well, you guys are still like technically married. You should just give him another chance. And I was like, okay, I guess, So I said, okay. So this whole time he gets out in March 2020. And we're doing fine, and then they closed everything down because of COVID. My kids were in therapy. I was in therapy, but then because of COVID, everything closes down. And so we're not receiving therapy anymore. But then now I'm dealing with my kids' behaviors. They were in foster care. Nobody talks about. I sort of like that's a topic that needs to be discussed. Like kids go through a lot in foster care, and when they get given back to their parents, the wraparound services end, and it's not easy. It was not easy. I found out that my son, at the time, he's 4 now. He was removed when he was 3, so he's almost 5 years old. Through his therapist, I ended up finding out that my son was sexually assaulted in foster care. And, so I'm dealing with his trauma. Now, my daughter also starts exposing herself in weird ways. I didn't know who to talk to. I reached out to the crisis number. I was like, I'm scared I'm going to relapse. I need help. My kids are misbehaving. I need therapy for my kids. But because of COVID, nobody was working. I was so scared. Like, I was so scared that I was gonna relapse. Then my ex-husband, and he's bringing in all this money, and I was like, well, where are you getting all this money from? And then I saw his bank account, and I was like, when he offered to buy me a car, I was like, you need to have a lot of money to buy a car. Are we gonna do it in payments or what? He's like, no, I'm gonna buy it cash, just pick a car. And I was like, all right. So I went with him, and we pick out a car. He goes to the bank, takes a bunch of cash. He took like $15,000 out in one sitting because he bought a used car. And I was like, what the heck? Where do you get all this money? And when I saw his bank account and I saw how much money he had in there, I was like, is he back to his old lifestyle, you know? And so I started doubting him, and I remember one of my brothers was like, you should never question a man how he provides for his family. So I was like, all right, you know what, you're right. So I let him do his thing, but then I started noticing he started disappearing, coming home, disappearing. He'd be gone for 3, 4 days. Long story short, I found out that he was cheating on me, but he was cheating on me with a man. Yeah.
This is
I found out
this is another one. So the other one had done the same thing then too, right? Though he was involved with men too. The other one,
the guy
in
that
this,
went to the guy that went to prison for
yeah.
killing me. Yes, but
Wow.
I knew he was bisexual. He told
Oh,
me like,
okay.
when I do drugs, I like men. And I remember he even tried sleeping with my ex-husband.
Oh.
This is why it hit me hard, because when my ex-husband was around all that bisexual stuff, he never seemed interested in it. So when I found out he was cheating on me with a man, he was in love with this guy, okay? And he was my best friend. So I've known him since I was 15, and to not know that he went the other
Mm.
way, it hit me hard. And I invited the guy over. The guy found me on social media and wanted to talk to me, and I was like, well, I want to talk to you too. So I invited him over, and he told me, he's like, initially when I first found out about you, I wanted to go off on you because I thought you were this horrible person. But you welcomed me into your home. You've been very accepting, and you have this aura about you, like this energy that's very healing and very comforting. And I was like, well, I'm not, I'm like, love is love. If this is what you guys want, I'm going to support it. So I didn't even shame my ex-husband about it. I didn't shame him. I was like, however you treat this guy behind closed doors, you should treat him like that in public, because if you love him, then love him out loud, bro. Like, just I mean, live your truth, dude. Like, like, just do you, dude. And he would like be in denial that he he's like, no, I was just using him for the money. And I was like, oh, so all that money came from this guy. I was like, so was he your
Mm.
daddy or what was it? Um so he made it seem like it was nothing, but then I found out that he was still sneaking around to see this guy, and at this point, all the stuff, my visions and stuff start coming back, and they're coming back heavy. So,
Mm.
and I'm not using drugs yet. So I start seeing things. During COVID, I'm telling you, like, some weird stuff happened, and I'm like, was any of this real? Was I tripping? Because I know my kids saw stuff too, and my kids were not on drugs.
Mm.
My son would see in his room, and it got to the point that they were all sleeping in the same room as me. My son would see like hands or people crawling out of the closet ceiling. And he's
Mm.
like, Mom, there's somebody in here. And I'm like, what is it? What is it? And I would pretend not to see it because I didn't want to scare him, but I saw it, and there was a person standing in the corner of his room. And I was like, well, how did they get in here? So I remember I bought cameras to see if maybe somebody was messing with me. I'm like, maybe somebody has a projector and they're messing with my family. We're being targeted or something. And I remember seeing these blue orbs, like these blue lights. Like at first I thought somebody was like flashing their like flashlights into my house, but I covered every window, I covered everything, and I would still see it. And I
Mm.
was like, oh my God, I'm tripping. I'm tripping. And then my daughter told me she saw, around the same time my son was seeing something in his room, I hear my daughter screaming. My daughter's 15, he's 5 at the time, and they're both freaking out. And I was like, well, what's happening? And she told me she saw like these hands reaching out for her. And so my kids are freaking out, and I'm over here freaking out. I'm like, I'm about to relapse. Like, this is too much. And I started seeing those blue orbs a lot, and I started seeing signals, reflections, like these weird symbols. I don't know what they meant. I even tried Googling it, but I didn't know how to Google it because I didn't know how to describe it. And I would see like the floor, like it was like a conveyor, like it was moving. And I would like have to like hold myself still because I'm like, am I tripping? Like, are we like on I felt like we were no longer in our apartment, like we were on like some kind of spaceship, and things were happening around the house. the trees were moving. I saw the trees were moving when I would look up into the sky. And I remember that I caught it on my camera. The cops kept my my chip because of something that happened in that house, which I'm gonna get into. Um, they kept all that, but in the camera feed I had caught where it was kind of like a hologram. Like you could see
Mm.
my house, but then it was a hologram, and you could see like a different dimension. Like there was a spaceship, and you
Mm.
would see like all these lights, beautiful colored lights, though. And there was like this being, like this weird being standing in my son's room, and there was a lot of lights. And so we saw this on our camera, and we're like, we're gonna have to move because this house is like either haunted or somebody's fucking with us.
Mm.
And so the day that I had relapsed, I went into a deep sleep where I was having sleep paralysis, but I don't think it was sleep paralysis. I think this happened for real. I remember like laying on the couch, and then I felt well, there was this being that said they were the Anunnaki. I didn't know what that was until my husband like told me 5 years later. Oh yeah, and then he showed me like this documentary. I was like, why would they come to me, and why are like that was weird. So the Anunnaki people, whatever, there was two of them. They were talking to me, and but they weren't talking to me with their voice. They were talking to me telepathically, and I saw that they were harvesting people's bodies during COVID. And but it was weird because it's like my kids were sleeping and they floated into like this they my kids the kids were not harmed. The people that were being
Mm.
harvested were the adults. The children were put into like a deep sleep, and they were like put somewhere else. And so what they did to me is like they mutilated my whole body with lasers, and I didn't feel any pain. They told me, you're not gonna feel a thing. This is gonna feel like a dream. That's what they told me. This is gonna all feel like a dream to you. And I was like, this can't be happening. And as they're like dismembering my body, I remember like I could smell the blood and I could taste it. It was like very heavy copper, like metally taste. And I'm like choking on my blood. And they're like, it's okay, just breathe. You're gonna be fine. This is gonna happen quick. You're not gonna feel a thing. And I wasn't feeling it, but because I could see it, I felt like it hurt. And then after that, they put me through this conveyor into this machine, this wood chipper machine, and then into this fire. And I remember that it felt so hot, it felt cold. And then that's how they got rid of my limbs. They kept my body and put it in my head, and they put it in a jar. And then there was these 12 beings who had these cloaks that were colored, they were suede, and they were like a burgundy color with gold and emerald on it. And they were like I couldn't see their faces, and they were tall. And they put the heads of people inside this cart, and they took us through this little train thingy into the mountains, and then up to the sky onto a spaceship where I don't think this was God, because I don't believe it to be so, but there was like this tall giant who picks my head up and carries me up, and I'm like this tiny little speck on his hand, and then my body grows, and it tells me you guys are going to serve a purpose in each dimension or each reality. And I was like, what are you even talking about? So they cloned our bodies, and they're placing each body in a different like reality, like different worlds, but it's still going to be us, but in a different world. And I was like, this is crazy. And like the bodies were in tubs. It was kind of like the Matrix, kind of. And the hand puts me back down, and they're like, this is where you're going to go, but you're also going to be in these other places. And I was like, scratching my head, because I was like, this can't be real. And so then I come to, and I remember I could feel my body still vibrating and glitching because my limbs are still getting used to connecting, you know? And there's times where I still get glimpses of that place I was at while I'm here.
Mm.
And it was scary. It was scary. And then I was like, I'm like, I can't use, because clearly when I use, it made me see something that was really scary. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but it scared me. So I decided not to use anymore. And after I started to grow a lot of resentment towards my ex-husband, because he was still lying to me and he was still seeing that guy. So I told him he needed to leave. And the day he came back to my house to pick up his belongings, my daughter, who was a year old, started having seizures. And I couldn't understand why. And I remember I called her doctor, and I was like, she's having seizures. I don't know what's happening. And he's like, time her seizures. And if they get more than this time, then call the ambulance. And so when I'm calling she had another seizure and then her body went limp and I'm doing CPR on her. And I
Mm.
called 911 and my ex-husband was like, don't do that. You're going to get in trouble. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, do you not see what's happening? He's like, you just got the kids back. Trust me, she's going to be fine. Trust me, she's going to be fine. Like he knew why she was having the seizures. I didn't know at the time yet what was going on. So I go with her to the hospital. They stabilize her and they're doing all these tests to figure out why she was having the seizures. And they couldn't figure out why. But then they looked at me up and down and then they go back. They searched my history when I had involvement with CPS and drug use. They told me, we're going to do one more test on your daughter. I was like, okay, that's fine. They sent me. They're like, okay, we already know what's wrong with your daughter. We need you to go to the hospital down the street and I need you to do a drug test. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I had already stopped using, so I knew I was clean. I went to go get checked. My drug test came back clean. And they're like, well, that's impossible. And I was like, why? And they're like, because your daughter tested positive for amphetamines. And I was
Wow.
like, how? And they're like, well, that's what we're hoping that you can tell us. And I was like crying because I was like, how could this have happened? I don't bring drugs into my house, you know? So they took my kids away again because of that. And
Mm.
I was like, everything that I had experienced in that year with all the things that I saw before the drugs, what I experienced when I relapsed, and what just had happened to my daughter, I was like, okay, God, I have to buckle up. Something isn't right. I have to protect my children. What I saw felt real. And I was like, God, like, you need to help me figure out how did this happen to my daughter? So they take my daughter away. I'm facing possible charges of neglect, child endangerment, and all these charges, right? And they interviewed my kids. They went into my house, and that's when they took they saw I had cameras, so they took all this stuff. They took it into evidence, whatever. Long story short, they found that the reason that my daughter had ingested drugs was because my ex-husband was smoking a pipe, smoking meth, 5 feet away from her and my son, blowing smoke into her face, and then handed her the pipe, and she sucked on it.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God.
they dropped all charges on me. And which I'm glad because like I said, that would have been like a horrible ending for me. And I knew like I that really messed my relationship up with my kids. A lot of people because they thought I did something like I love my kids. I would never hurt my kids. And so when they dropped the charges, they gave me the opportunity to get my kids back again. And so I checked into rehab. I got myself into mental health rehab too. And at this point, I'm already diagnosed with schizophrenia but then again, I started to be more careful with what I shared because I was like, these
Mm.
people don't believe me. They don't believe in spiritual stuff. I mean, there's only a few psychologists that do, but most of them don't. They put you on medication and whatnot. So I I got clean. I started to get my kids back, and what happened after that? I That's when I started seeing the guy I'm married to now, and I told him my stories, and he's like, wow, you saw spaceships? Like, that stuff could be real. Like, so he was like feeding into it. And I was like, you don't think I'm crazy? He's like, no, I don't think you're crazy. Stuff like that. Because he's into podcasts, he's into all this stuff, and he like looks into stuff like that. So he started sharing to me like people that talk about these experiences. And I was never really into it, but I'm like, what else happened? And so he shared with me something that might help me with my cravings or with if I felt triggered because in 2021 when I had already gotten clean I had found out my grandfather, who was the last person on this planet that I cared about that was still alive. He told me he had cancer, and
Mm.
it was terminal. And he told me this in May and he passed away in August. I remember that throughout this, in August, I ended up relapsing and I used. And then I went to go see him. And then I realized when he couldn't recognize me, I was like, I can't do this to my grandfather. He deserves a lot better. And I don't want to do this to myself where I'm not in the moment when he's dying. So August 13th is my clean date. So that was the last day that I used. And I
Mm.
decided that's when I decided to you know, get sober off of alcohol and meth because those were both my drug of choice. And then with my husband that I'm with now, because I was in therapy and they had introduced to me EMDR therapy. with psychedelics. So I tried it. And my first time that I tried it, it was very overwhelming for me. I remember I first I started seeing like sparkly diamonds everywhere. And I was like, wait, this like feels familiar. I already can see stuff like this, right? But then it was the emotions that came with it. After I started to tap into another reality, I started crying very bad. Like, oh my God, like something had hurt me in my chest. I was crying, I was crying, I was crying. And my grandfather had already passed away. So I remember feeling his spirit while I was in that therapy trip. Um, and it gave me some sense of calmness and relaxation. And I remember I felt like this warm hug from God. And
Mm.
it was like I was having a conversation with God, and God's like, he's like, you can connect with me, but not like that. When he was talking about the meth and the alcohol, he's like, that's not me. That is not me. That's the enemy. That's what the enemy wants you to believe. I am not that. This is beautiful, right? And I was like, yeah, it really is. So, and so through the EMDR therapy, the therapist walked me down a lot of my traumatic events, which was really hard to do because before this, I had to do a lot of training and like coping skills because this is really intense therapy. They walk you down like, for example, one of the traumatic events, like my dad, when he puts the gun to my head and tells me you have to give me oral sex or I'm going to shoot you. So
Mm.
she replaced that memory with something else. So now when I talk about it, I'm not like crying or hurting. So she replaced a lot of my traumatic memories with a better memory to the point where like a lot of the stuff, like I don't even, did it even happen? Like, was it a dream? So she did that and she told me we're going to try this again in another year. And because she said what it did pretty much, it reset my brain. So the
Mm.
next time that I did it, I went in with intention. I remember I prayed and I asked God to guide me and to be there for me. The second time I did it, I I had a conversation again. At this point, I'm still not that deep into religion or the Bible, so I don't know any scripture. I just know that the second time that I went in there, I asked God, "Well, who are you? Who are you? What do you want from me?" And we were like in this place where it looked like the mountains were red and it kind of looked like the upside down. You've seen Stranger Things, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
kind of looked like the upside down. And I was like, "Well, who are you?" And I just hear his voice and he tells me, "I am who I am." And I was like, "What does that mean? Who are you? What does that mean? Who I am? Who I am? Who is that?" And then like a couple years after that, somebody had mentioned that that's in the Bible, and I was like, "That's crazy. That's wild." So ever since I tried the psychedelic EMDR therapy, I haven't had cravings. I don't drink alcohol. I've been a more calm person because I was an angry person. Like I said, my dad taught us to do a lot of bad stuff, so I was always fighting. And now it's like I'm chill. Like I smile a lot more. I'm not reactional. Like I was an aggressive person. I'm not like that anymore. Like all those negative spirits. The last podcast I did with the lady, she asked me if with all my traumas and experiences, if I don't have any alters, and I told her that I do. I'm like I do, but after this EMDR therapy, they've kind of been silenced, and I'm only living with one alter. Like sometimes when conflicts arises, my other alters come up, but I'm trying to learn how to, have them shake hands and just agree with only one. But I do still have like experiences with visions. Oh, okay. So let me tell you the one that just got confirmed to me. When I first started dating my husband in 2021, he had taken me to his house where his mom lives. And I remember the first thing that I saw there was a woman. And I remember I felt, long story short, they told me that that was his sister who had passed away. I didn't know she
Mm.
passed away. To me, she looked real. She was just standing in the hallway looking at me because I had gotten up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. And I was like, is there another woman who lives here? Do you have another woman here? Like, he let me believe that I thought he was cheating on me because he didn't want to tell me his sister had passed. Like, I don't think he was ready to
Mm.
talk about it. I found out through his mom because she told me that he's the one that walked in and found her. Um,
Wow.
that's one thing. Two, when I was in the room with him and I remember we were about to fall asleep, I looked into his eyes and I saw some horrible things, like things that happened when he was a child in that house because he grew up in that
Oh.
house. Traumatic things that happened to him and things that he did as an adult. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, you know what? I told him that I didn't feel comfortable, that I didn't feel safe, that I needed to leave. And he got mad. We got into an argument. He helped me pack all my stuff and I left. 2 weeks later, I told him, like, it's because I saw some stuff. I didn't tell him everything. I just told him the most recent things that I saw. And I had permission from him to talk about this because I know he's going to share it. And his people are going to be like, you had this addiction? What? You know? So in my visions that I saw when I looked into his eyes, I saw him masturbating and watching porn, all kinds of porn, right? In his room, in the car, in here, in there. And I was like, what? Why am I seeing this? So I told him, I was like, I had these visions that you were masturbating and you were watching porn. And so then he opened up to me and he told me that he had a porn addiction. And, you know, that's something we figured out. And I hope he doesn't have that problem no more. But that's one thing. And then just 2 weeks ago, I started opening up to him because I talked to my therapist about it. And I told her, these are some of the visions that I've had of my husband when he was little. She's like, you should talk to him about it. So then I told him, and he's like, there's no way you could have known that because I've never said that to anybody. And I was like, oh my God, I was actually hoping that you would tell me that none of this was true because I don't want to know that these things happen to you. And he was like, well, now that you know, maybe you should go confront these people and let them know that you know. And I was like, this is not my story to tell. You need to let them know that I know and that people are aware of what they did because what was done to you was not okay. You were a kid. And I'm like, I get it. Some of this stuff happened to me too. And, you know, I'm not gonna tell somebody else to go confront my people, you know what I mean? And I told him you have to figure out how to deal with these things. So that was recent. One of the visions that I talked to my husband that I had like 5 years ago. Another thing that I have in my dreams is that people come to me when they die. Yeah, when they die. I had my ex's cousin, the one that lived next door to us. Her dad had died. I had a dream about him, and he was saying goodbye to me. And I was like, bye? Like, I don't understand. Why am I dreaming about you? We're not even that close, you know? And the next day, I opened up my Facebook, and I saw postings of RIP that he had just passed away. I was like, that's weird. And another dream that I had was my cousin, no, my uncle. I had an uncle who lives in Mexico who had gone missing. And the night before they found him, I saw a blue orb in my kitchen, and then I fell asleep. And as I slept, I had a dream about him that he was inside of a hospital with yellow walls, and he had a bunch of blood on him, and especially his left side. And he was just pointing at the time, and I was like, "What? I don't understand. Like, what are you doing here?" And then in my dream, I realized I'm like, "Wait, you're missing." And I was like, "Where are you? What happened to you?" And I saw all the blood on him. At first, I thought maybe he was in a motorcycle accident or something, but he just kept like pointing at the clock, and then like, you know, he just kept holding his head. And so I remember in my dream, I tried to give him this bracelet that I have that I've worn since my daughter was born. And for some reason, I wanted to give it to him. And I was like, here, so it can protect you wherever you're going. And he was like, no. And he gave me the jacket he had on and gave me a hug. And I was like, okay. So then I woke up the next day and I texted my brother and I was like, hey, so I had this dream about our uncle. He's like, you should reach out to his sister and let her know. And I was like, yeah, but you already know that they're probably gonna think I'm crazy. He's like, just do it. So I sent her a text on Messenger and I told her like, hey, this is my dream. I know it's gonna sound crazy, but have you guys checked your local hospitals? And I told her the specific one that I saw him in had a bunch of yellow walls, and there was like 6 beds all around in the same room. And she was like, you know what? We're gonna go check them out. I'll keep you posted. So I remember I went to go take a shower. I come back and I get a message from her, and she's like, we found my brother. And I was like, I was like, okay, so where is he? She's like, we found him in the morgue. The morgue had yellow walls. And I was like, okay. And she said that there was 6 beds too. And so then I was like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to intrigue too much, but when you guys found out the cause of death, can you let me know? And she's like, sure, why? I was like, because in my dream, the cause of his death had to do with a head injury in his left side. There was a lot of blood in my dream. And she said, okay. So then a couple of weeks passed by and she reaches out to me and she's like, we found out the cause of his death was blunt force trauma to the head.
Wow.
He was actually murdered. Yeah. I guess he had left home and he was walking home and he got jumped and they beat him to death. So Yeah, I still have glimpses of like stuff that happens, or still like I still see things, you know what I mean? I still
Yeah.
see things, and my husband's always like, "Okay, you're dozing off again. Come back over here." Like he knows when to snap me into reality, because sometimes I'll like and I've had studies done. I've had studies done where they check to see if I have narcolepsy, which they told me that I do narcolepsy with cataplexy or something like that, where I'm like sleeping while I'm awake. And
Mm.
but it's not like I'm purposely. It's like I'll start daydreaming, but it's not that I'm daydreaming. I'm tapping into another reality, and it gets hard because I'm trying to stay here, but then my spirit is like trying to go somewhere else, and it's like, I've been reaching out to people like to help me, guide me, like to figure out what these gifts that are given to me and how to better use them. Like my husband's vision, for example, I was able to see that to help him because I've gone through it. And for what I do for a living is I work in a reentry program. So I work with a lot of
Mm.
people who are in custody getting out, whether it's state or county. And I feel like that my gifts help me connect with them and help them get to where they're going, despite their criminal charges, and so that's what I'm trying to work on right now, is just figuring out how to use my gifts for the better cause, because God gave me these gifts for a reason, and I don't want to not do good for it, like I do go to church now. I haven't baptized myself yet. I decided I'm gonna do it on my 5th year of recovery. That's what I'm gonna do for myself and for my grandfather, because that's also the 5th year that he passed. Um, but I learned about having a relationship with Jesus is more important than religion, and I know that the more closer that I am to God, the less negative energy and dark entities that I see. I mean, they're still going to be there. They're always going to be there. You know what I'm saying? My kids are starting to have these things now. My son literally just called me a few days ago telling me that he was having a dream about a fire, and that these 3 people were hurt, the people that he lives with. He's like, "Mom, tell me why in my dream this happened, but in real life these people are in the hospital because they have some kind of virus." And I was like, he has the same ability as me, you know?
Mm.
And then my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter, her too, she has dreams that something's happening to one or two of her siblings. And I'm like, well, they are going through some stuff. So maybe you're just, spiritually connected in some way, So yeah, I mean, despite all the traumatic stuff that I've gone through and all the crazy stuff that I've seen, I'm still here. Even though I'm diagnosed with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, I don't see it like that. I don't take medication either. So, and I live a normal life. I have a full-time job. I'm in school. I have kids. I got remarried and I have kids with him. So, I'm here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm
And
grateful.
I'm
Like
not
I'm
crazy.
no, no. Hey, trust me. Like I didn't have as obviously like a traumatic upbringing as you had, but as far as like experiencing the things I've seen, right, the different dimensions, even when you talk about that was something more newer that happened, but you mentioned twice about these 12 beings, right? And one day it was like that, right? I was connected to, right, like God, right? It was like I saw myself and it was like this beam of light was shooting up, connecting me, and this thing was angry and it was trying to break this connection. And I found out about these things called archons, and I think there's supposed to be 12 of them, right? And they're these beings that are supposed to be the beings that try to keep people imprisoned in this planet. And I'm getting chills as
Mhm.
I'm telling you, right? So yeah, that was something I was like, what's this? And I went down that rabbit hole and I started learning about, I was like, so new things keep coming up, right? Like the Anunnaki, I've seen them too, all this stuff, like all these things I've seen, right? So yeah, if you ever need help navigating some of this stuff, where you feel like other people can't understand you, what you're experiencing, uh yeah, the same, right? I try to keep myself grounded, um because that I've been told like a lot of I'm too much in that world, right? Like I feel better over there usually, right? I feel better on like that side, right? Like or tapping in, but that's kind of what I was made known that we're here, right? We're here for a reason. We're here for a reason to do things, whether it's helping others, right? Or things like that. So I had to learn how to stay here, right? Like do normal people stuff, right? Work, do this, do that, right? So yeah, so I know you're not crazy. There were two things that gave me big time chills when you were talking. One was the duendes. When you talked about the two duendes, I got crazy chills. And then when you talked about your uncle that you went to hug, I don't know, I almost felt like his presence at the moment that you said that or something like that. Like I got big time chills. So that was pretty interesting. So
Yeah. Um, I feel his presence sometimes. But I don't know. I still feel like for him, there's a lot that needs to be investigated. They cremated his body before we can get a second autopsy.
mm.
But yeah, the duendes, man. I've always heard that those things come after kids. And my mom would always tell me, you got to shower your kids because if they're dirty, they're going to come after them when they're dirty. So I'm like, don't get dirty. The duendes are going to come after you.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, no, I mean, we're definitely put where what did you mentioned something about being on a red planet kind of thing or a red place with God. Like I've been there too. So what did you see when you seen this place?
So it looks red, right? There's mountains. I would
Yes.
describe like I've seen pictures of what I don't know if it's Utah or Arizona, what it looks like. It's
Hmm.
similar to that. And it's just like I'm walking like but not on the actual ground. It's like I'm floating or something. And it looks like the lake looks like red. Um yeah, it's just a red, it looks red all around. I don't know. That was where I saw him, and that's where he told me I am who I am. And I was like, okay, you are who you are. And but it looks kind of like red, like upside down, like it's
Yeah.
something not here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I thought it was another planet. I saw it probably in my early 20s, but it was weird. It was like if the whole world kind of had ended and we were up in a mountain, everything was red, and there was a cave, and there was who I thought like was God, right? Ancient, like all like the it was almost like if it was a spirit, but it felt like a real, like I could touch him, the everything, right? The eyes glowing, right? Like this ancient, the most ancient, like that, like an I am who I am kind of being. I mean, this woman were there almost like if we were the only ones left and we were gonna repopulate this planet or something, and all the sky was filled with like all the souls flying, like if I don't know, if like the whole world had ended and we were the only ones that were left and God was right there. Yeah, we were like up in a mountain, everything was red, it was a cave, and so I still remember that. Yeah, it feels real, right? It's not like it's
Yeah.
like the
And
way
it
you
was
could
just us.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just us.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was, yeah, right now you mentioned that it was just you guys. It just felt like us. I'm like, where
Yeah,
is everybody, you know?
yeah, yeah.
But I've also had like a lot of dreams like of the world ending. And they're always the same thing, like looking up at the sky and seeing these lights, like um and then like meteors and then like a bunch of like the water, like, because I live in California, so it's like, like a tsunami. And it's like I used to love going to the beach, but sometimes I get scared because I remember those dreams. But it's always the same. I have like when I describe this dream to people, they're like, that's the revelation or something. You're dreaming
Mm.
the end of times. And I was like, but why can I see this? Or is it gonna happen? Like, and I always think about my kids every time that happens. Every time I have
Mm.
those dreams, I always think about my kids. I'm like, God, just whatever, just protect my kids, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, we're okay, right? No matter what happens, it's okay. And that I think, right? There's a lot of things happening, different realities at the same time, right? Like when you tap into that, the same. The first time that ever happened to me when I was awake, I was in the shower, and the water is a portal, right? That's how we come into this world, right? In the womb, encased in water. So water is literally a portal. And I was in the shower, and all of a sudden, it was like if I had 50 TVs in my head at once, right? All these realities at the same time. And I dropped to my face and I started praying, take it away, take it away, take it away. I was like, I'm going to end up in the nut. Like, it just wouldn't stop. And then, so after over a minute, it finally went away. and I like, okay, now I could tap into it. But when it first happened, like it freaked me out because I was like, oh wow, like that's it. I yeah, like this is it. Like this is too much. Like how do I see 50 realities at the same time? Or more? I don't even know how many it was, right? But all these realities just like boom, boom, boom. So now, yeah. So it's a lot. I get it. Why, right? Or people that don't understand. I think when I first started speaking up, I thought about like I've met friends, right, that were put on medication when they were little because they started talking about their gifts and their parents didn't understand. They were like, "Oh, my kid's nuts," put them on medication and just the damage that could do to so many people. I think now more people are aware. So like you, right, you could nurture your kids, you could teach them, like, hey, talk to me. Yeah, you're not crazy, this and that, right? Tell me
Yeah.
what's happening. So yeah.
Yeah. No, and I've always known since I was a kid there was something different with me. Even in this reality, when I was little, I had the ability to learn things differently, like to speak, I understand languages. I don't have that anymore. The drugs somewhat took that ability away.
Mm.
So when I was in kindergarten, they tested me and they told me I was a gifted student. So I was a gate student my whole life. So
Oh,
yeah, so I don't know if you know what that is. They would
yeah,
have
yeah.
they do these tests on you, and you see they'll tell you, what does this look like? And you'll tell them it looks like something, but then it's something else. And my dad would always tell me, he's like, you have to play it dumb, like you have to, because the government's gonna come after people like you. They're telling you you're gifted, but you are, and they're gonna put you away. So when you see stuff,
Mm.
when you hear, just don't speak up. So for a while, like, and that's another crazy thing about it too, is that how is it that every drug addict can experience and see similar things and they have nothing in connection? We're being watched. Somebody's recording me. The government's coming after me. Because that's another thing that I would experience too when I was using is that there was like a big camera following me around,
Mm.
and it was like I work with a lot of drug addicts. I'm a counselor. I'm a sub counselor. So in the reentry program, sometimes my clients will relapse, and I've had them tell me, I'm like, how are you feeling? What are you seeing? What's going on? And now they're after me. Like everything they said they were seeing or experiencing, I had gone through it too. So how does that make any sense? You know what I'm saying? So my dad would always tell me, he would always be like, when you try not to speak on what you see because they're gonna put you away. They're hiding you because you guys are gonna have the ability to change the world. I
Yeah.
never knew what he meant, you know what I mean? And so like I said, for a long time I would block these things out, but now I'm more interested in it, but I feel like there's something good coming with it, like
Mm.
a lot of people are gonna be able to put their gifts together,
Yeah.
like I feel like a lot of us are silenced for a reason.
Yeah. And that's how I felt like I was meant to find because no matter where I would go, like that. I remember once walking and a voice telling me talk to this security guard and she was sitting all alone right there. And next thing you know, I go back. I'm like, okay, fine. And then I go back. I'm like, hey, you're sitting over here all alone. Next thing you know, we're having like a 6 hour conversation. She breaks down crying, like saying how even her partner, right, didn't believe her, all this stuff. Like she felt alone, right? So that's the thing is I would always meet, and it's that same story, right? People that felt alone, they suppress the gifts because no one would believe them or act like they're crazy and all that stuff, right? See, and I've been sober for a long time and I knew, see, it was like they were forcing me to be sober, and I thought it was because when you would tell people, they'll be like, "Oh, were you doing something or why?" Like, when you're having even when I started being around the native community, the same. Oh, were you doing peyote or something? And that's why you started having visions. The first time I ever went to a peyote ceremony, I was about to do it, and the voice told me, "You don't need it." And sure enough, I still had visions and everything, and I didn't even take it, right? Because they told me you don't need it, right? And so the same like you said, once, I was all drunk and I had friends with me and I told them, because I would like try to die, right? And I was like, I can't die. I saw that something was keeping me. So like, I can't die. And I grabbed the wheel of the car and the car turned so violent. Even my friend, he was mad at me because he felt like his ribs messed up because how violently the car turned around. It was raining. And then it was like a hand just grabbed my car and set it straight, right? And you see all the lights from the different cars coming, and nothing happened to us, right? It was like something just grabbed the car and boom. And I was like, whoa, like something literally grabbed the car and stopped it, right?
Wow.
And then so later, yeah, years later, a friend, he visits me and he's doing meth and this and that. And he told me a similar story. He's, oh, I was on the freeway and my tires flew off, and these angels came, they grabbed my car and they safely put it on the side. And I knew he was saying the truth because I experienced it. But that's, I knew. See, I was like, no one's gonna believe him because he's on meth. I was like, I saw that. So I was like, that's why it's important for me to be sober, because later on, when these stories, people don't believe you, you know what I mean? And so that's why it was important for me to be sober. Yeah. And I had like 3 DUIs. So all these things, right? All that stress of like going to, pay all that stuff. It cost me probably for the 3 DUIs, right? Like over 40 something grand to pay for the house arrest and this and that. You know what I mean? All that stuff. So yeah, they did everything to make sure like somehow I would be led to be sober, right? So, and I
Yeah.
understood why. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's amazing though. Like, the also another thing that I have is the ability, like I said, when I can tap out, it's like I'm teleporting. So I can
Mm,
teleport into like different timelines.
mm,
And I hate it because that's when I have my visions. When I teleport into like future things. For instance, I knew I was gonna marry my husband. I
mm.
had it in a vision, and I remember like exactly everything that I was wearing and how many kids we had. And
Wow.
that's when he it's funny the way he proposed to me though, because he just threw the ring at me. He's like, all right, let's get married. And he threw I'm like, I'm not a Pokemon. You can't just throw me a ball and pick me. So I was like, you gotta propose to me correctly. So he proposed to me in La Jolla, and when we got married and all that, it played out exactly how I saw it in my vision. But sometimes when I do have like when I teleport to a different reality, sometimes I don't think it's in this dimension. It's probably a different one, and
Mm,
bad things happen, like
mm.
accidents and stuff like that. So I'm always constantly praying for my kids and like telling them to be careful or to like not do a certain thing or whatever. But because I can only try to avoid things, but if it's meant to be, it's gonna be meant to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, no, and the same. I remember I had that for myself. I used to think, because I do music too, so I would write songs and then they would come true. Like, and that's one of the things that happened. I remember this girl that I knew, I wrote a song and I wrote that she passed, but it was more to like scare people, right? Because I was around a lot of people that did meth. So
Yeah.
I wrote her story. And then 7 years after I wrote it, she really passed how I said she passed in the song. So I was like, oh, did I manifest that? Did I, you know what I mean? Or even the pandemic. I wrote about the pandemic 10 years before it happened. I wrote this song and I was trying to explain what I saw in a dream. And then when the pandemic happened, I was like, wow, this was that vision I had that I put into that song from 10 years ago. It was the pandemic, right? Because I remember how empty the streets were, all this stuff. And sure enough, I wasn't listening, right? I was like, I'm gonna go to nature because no one would be over there. Sometimes I'd run into one hiker right in the mountains during the pandemic, and I'm like, okay, we're not gonna catch nothing here, right? Like you just like. So I wouldn't listen, and I remember driving, and everything was empty. It was like a ghost town, and that's how the dream was. I remember, and I had seen like a doomsday clock in the dream, right? And yeah, it was just crazy. But yeah, the songs, right? So and I was able before, I saw someone pass in a dream and I warned them and they didn't pass, but someone else did. So it was like, wow, someone still has to go, right? Or something. I was like, wow, okay, this is
Yeah.
yeah. So no, I got you. Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
your fault we had COVID. No, I'm just kidding.
no, no, I didn't see it was that. Well, the same, right? So, but I got what you're saying, right? I understand. I just share that so I know when you felt like, I mean, at one point you felt like, wait, is it my fault or like, am I causing this or something?
Yeah.
So no, now I
Yeah.
see. Like
That's
I
why I
had.
only share the good visions.
Go ahead. What?
So that's why I only share the good visions because I try to
Yeah.
manifest only the good.
Yeah, no, no. I've had dreams of this like almost like this new world, beautiful. It's like the greenest greens you could see, and yeah, it's like I'm walking down this road, and I look back and there's people, and I don't know why I'm in the front. Not to say, oh, I'm leading these, but I'm in the front, and I look back and there's people of all different ethnicities, like, and yeah, it's just like almost like this new earth, right? And then it was a recurring dream. So finally, I had a dream where we get to this shore, and the water, you can't even describe it with human words, right? The water is the most beautiful water you could imagine, right? We get to these shores, and so yeah, I've seen this new earth too, and everything's just beautiful. There was even hybrid animals. I remember I saw, and I told everybody, look, there's a wolf. But then the wolf turns, and I'm like, oh no, wait, it's a deer. Then it turns again. I'm like, oh no, it's a wolf with antlers, right? It was a huge wolf with antlers. But then I look it up, and it's funny. This kid had made a video that some tribe, I don't know where, actually had a story about a wolf with antlers. And I had never heard of a wolf with antlers. So yeah, in the dream, but it was in this new earth, right? It was over there eating grass or something. And I was like, what? Like, as we're walking down this middle road, and on the right was like a golden city almost. It was like a city, but the sun was shining and it looked brand new, right? It was
Yeah.
like, it was weird. This huge like building, but it was like shining. And then on the left was nature. And then we're walking down the middle. And then this was a recurring dream, right? So I've had these beautiful visions of this. So I know we can make something beautiful in this place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just people have to collectively want it, you know? That's what it is. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add, or?
I don't know. Do you have any more questions for me?
I mean, I'm sure we could keep going and going. Like, okay, well, is there anything like, have you had anything like that about the future? Like something like how you said you wanna talk about the positive things. Is there anything to leave people like on a brighter note, right? For people to be hopeful about.
So my thing is like because right now I'm studying religions right now because I'm in school, and I know that what they all have in common is the manifesting, the karma, all that stuff. And for me, like, because they say the power of the tongue is strong, right? It even
Mm,
says that in the Bible. So, I believe like if you have faith, you want to believe great things. So like if I start to have these visions of something horrible happening to my children and I keep thinking about it over and over again and then something happens to them, it's gonna happen. So you have to like just lean on the good stuff, like think that you hit the lottery or something. Like,
mm,
I know a lot about numbers, but I just don't want to mess with that because, you know, when having a lot of money can also be bad.
yeah.
Um, but I don't know, I just think like leaning towards the good stuff and you know, using like something that I've been learning a lot through our church is like using your spiritual gifts to connect with people and help lead them, towards the right path. Like for me, I get used for like a lot as an example. The organization 2911 that helped me, I go and I speak for them at fundraisers, right? And I share with them what that program did for me in hopes of bringing more awareness and helping them raise money for that program. And I feel like that's the same thing I try to do generally in public speaking is that a person like me was not meant to survive. A person like me is not meant to be
Mm,
here. A person like me is not meant to have a great life. I should be in jail. I should be in a mental hospital. I should have never been a mom. I should have never finished school. Like I was a teen mom. I just received my first 2 degrees last week, and I have a career. Like I'm remarried. Like something my own mother would tell me was that nobody would ever love a person like me because I was
mm,
tainted because of all the sexual assault I've experienced. And my grandmother would always try to teach me to be with men for money, to use my body for money. That's another thing that I learned after my grandma passed away was that she was an escort, and that so was my mother. So obviously, I'm not gonna like question my mom about it now because she's gonna be like, let her rest in peace,
mm.
whatever. But I found these things out through my grandfather when he started telling me that she even brought one of her dudes to my uncle's funeral. I was like, I shook hands with that guy. That's gross. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So I was the opposite of what I was supposed to be. Like I survived all of these things, and even despite all the negative, like the Santeria, the sacrifices, and all the stuff that I was exposed to, I feel like we're all here for a reason. We're all here for a purpose, whatever it may be. Even me here speaking with you, you know what I mean? I know you mentioned that you've done speaking in Spanish. Like that's something that I look forward to doing too. My boss saw my first podcast and she's like, "So have you thought about talking Spanish?" And I was like, "About that." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I do speak Spanish, but I don't. It's not my first language, and I don't fluently speak it a lot. But I do speak it. I am bilingual, and I wish I would have more people to speak Spanish with. But I just believe everything happens for a reason, and we're all here with a purpose. And I think we should just follow the good, not the bad, and definitely stay away from drugs.
Mm. No,
Yeah.
thank you so much for saying that, and congratulations on your degrees. And also, if you want me to add the link to that program, send it to me, and I'll put it in the description for this podcast, and any other links you want me to share, any programs that you want me to share the links for, in case
Yeah.
someone might. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, no, thank
Thank
you so much. It's an honor. I appreciate you sharing your story. Thank you for being brave to do it, right? Because a lot of people have stories, and I mean, I get it, right? In time, right, when they're ready, they'll but I know that it does help people, right? It helps people not feel alone in the struggle, and all that stuff. So thank you so much.
you for having me. It
Absolutely.
was nice meeting you.
No, you too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I wanna feel this way forever.